Chapter 2747. Organizing Treasures. Jian Wushuang had previously displayed the triple oppression method that consisted of Star Armor Domain, Prison of Punishment, and Sword Worlds superimposed on each other when he used it to suppress Saber Master, who ended in a miserable state of defeat. He had 4 methods of oppression at that moment, with the additional Golden Feather Phantom Mirror, all of which were extremely powerful. It would cause a considerable amount of suppression on a high-level Grand Ultimate God, or even a genuine peak Grand Ultimate God, when those 4 oppression methods were unleashed and superimposed. It would be a great advantage for Jian Wushuang in a duel. After refining the Golden Feather Phantom Mirror, Jian Wushuang took out a pitch-black defensive armor that looked like the scales of a ferocious beast. Grand Ultimate God Hong Chen used to wear that defensive armor. This is a pinnacle heavenly treasure defensive armor, and is the best defensive armor I've seen, but unfortunately it's been severely damaged. Jian Wushuang disappointingly shook his head. Grand Ultimate God Hong Chen obtained the defensive armor that had the amazing physical protective ability from the Secret Realm. It was unfortunate that he went against Saber Master, who was using a holy treasure. No matter how strong the physical protective ability of the defensive armor, it could not gain an advantage in the face of a holy treasure. Saber Master killed Hong Chen by making a slit through the defensive armor with a single saber move before finally beheading Hong Chen. The defensive armor's value greatly depreciated after it was severely damaged. Jian Wushuang put the defensive armor aside before taking out the Purple Imperial Bell and Holy Treasure Crimson Battle Saber belonging to Saber Master. Jian Wushuang was carefully examining them. The Purple Imperial Bell isn't too bad. Jian Wushuang was grinning. The defensive armor he took out earlier was only good for defending one's divine body, while the Purple Imperial Bell was a comprehensive physical protective treasure. It could directly withstand face-to-face physical as well as soul attacks. Therefore, it could also be regarded as a soul defensive treasure. In addition, the force bombarded on the Purple Imperial Bell would produce a sonic boom counterattack upon resisting an attack. Jian Wushuang had seen the Purple Imperial Bell's potential when it was still in Saber Master's hands. Its defensive ability was extremely powerful, since it managed to even repel Long Xianz's meteor bead's terrifying power. The only flaw was its defensive barrier would weaken over time from repeated impacts struck by the opponent. Once the barrier was destroyed, it would take quite some time to recover before being put to use once again. Although its protective barrier could not be immediately restored, its value was still several times more expensive than the pinnacle heavenly treasure defensive armor. Jian Wushuang smiled and immediately claimed ownership of the Purple Imperial Bell, which was soon refined and fused into his divine body. My physical protective ability is extremely powerful on top of my perfect immortal body. It's almost impossible for the average expert to kill me. The Purple Imperial Bell isn't very useful to me, but since I shouldn't expose my immortal body just yet, it's not a bad idea to use the Purple Imperial Bell as a disguise. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Next, he looked at the Crimson Battle Saber. The Crimson Battle Saber was truly a holy treasure. Even an undying saint would cherish a holy treasure. Jian Wushuang was excited. The defensive armor and Purple Imperial Bell are extremely precious, but the Crimson Battle Saber's value is probably more than 10 times the Purple Imperial Bell's. Jian Wushuang was beaming. Holy treasure and heavenly treasure were very different. A pinnacle heavenly treasure was definitely far less valuable than an ordinary holy treasure, regardless it was an offensive type divine weapon. Unfortunately, the holy treasure was absolutely useless to Jian Wushuang, since it's a battle saber, so he could only sell it to exchange for the resources he needed. After sorting out those treasures, Jian Wushuang waved his hand and took out an interspatial ring. Jian Wushuang could not wait to explore the contents in the interspatial ring in front of him. It was the final interspatial ring Old Gu offered, and was also the one that made 5 grand ultimate gods compete for it frantically. No one else would know the interspatial ring's contents apart from Sabermaster, who initially received it. However, they were still fighting frantically for it even when they knew nothing about its content. They knew very well its contents must be some important treasures. There was no doubt about it. Let me see what kind of treasure did the old man put in this interspatial ring. After taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang began to investigate the ring's content. Jian Wushuang found there were only 3 treasures in the interspatial ring. Jian Wushuang waved his hand, and the 3 treasures appeared in the void before him. It was a silver battle armor, a baby-sized black beast statue, and a dark gray jade slip. Jian Wushuang first looked at the silver battle armor. It looked ordinary at first glance, with a relatively dull color and not releasing much aura. Copious messages flooded in as soon as Jian Wushuang sent out his soul power to examine the armor. More battle armor, a holy treasure. Jian Wushuang's eyes went wide. Holy treasure. It's another holy treasure. In addition, a defensive armor type. Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded. Sabermaster's holy treasure battle saber was extremely valuable. It was a known fact that a holy treasure offensive divine weapon was far less valuable than a defensive armor of the same level. Among the few treasures that Old Gu gave, there was a holy treasure defensive armor. How much was the defensive armor's value? If the battle saber was something ordinary undying saints would cherish, then this more armor is probably good enough to cause ordinary undying saints to fight for it, mumbled Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang knew that many weaker undying saints did not own a suitable holy treasure offensive divine weapon, with most still using pinnacle heavenly treasures. Therefore, a suitable holy treasure offensive divine weapon would trigger a fierce contest. Indeed, the defensive armor was good enough to make ordinary undying saints go crazy for it. He's very generous. Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Although the Moir battle armor was good, it was also of little use to Jian Wushuang. After all, he had his own life armor, the golden glass armor. Although the physical protective capability of the golden glass armor was far inferior to the Moir battle armor, it was connected with Jian Wushuang's lifeblood. In addition, it could continuously improve its power as Jian Wushuang's strength improves. In correlation to Jian Wushuang's strength increase, the golden glass armor had also been upgraded from primary level to high-level heavenly treasure. It was in actuality at the peak of a high-level heavenly treasure and only a thin line away from being a pinnacle heavenly treasure. The most important part of choosing a divine weapon or treasure was still compatibility toward its user after all. It was sufficient for Jian Wushuang to have the golden glass armor, hence we would not need the Moir battle armor. Chapter 2748. A Windfall. Jian Wushuang calmed down and looked at the second treasure, the baby-sized black beast statue. This statue, Jian Wushuang looked at the statue but could not understand it. He felt an extremely powerful destructive force from the statue. The destructive force was astounding. The baby-sized black beast statue seemed to come alive under Jian Wushuang's gaze, as though it was sleeping quietly. This is such an unusual beast statue. Although I can't figure it out, it should be a destruction, law-based premier treasure. It must be extraordinary for it to be placed in the same interspatial ring as a holy treasure defensive armor, said Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang moved on from the statue to the third treasure, the dark gray jade slip. Jian Wushuang instantly understood the function of the jade slip with the influx of his soul power. Teleportation. It's teleportation. Jian Wushuang was surprised. The jade slip was imbued with a technique, a teleportation technique. teleportation, instantaneously moving from one spacetime to another. An expert could execute such means once their perception of spacetime law had reached an extremely high level. Many Undying Saints who were good at spacetime law, including those Undying Saint experts, were not qualified to utilize such methods. It was a highly sophisticated method with an extremely high requirement on spacetime law understanding. In the ancient God domain, few Undying Saints could perform the method. They were the best of the best Undying Saints who were truly invincible. Whoever could perform a teleportation method was no doubt a peak expert. It was no doubt an excellent life-saving method. An Undying Saint who could perform a teleportation method could easily run away from a law lord not well-versed in space-time law under normal circumstances, and the law lord would not be able to catch up. Even when used for normal transportation purposes, simply relying on one's feet to move around was completely different from using a teleportation method. It was why countless experts were envious of those who could perform teleportation methods. Unfortunately, it was a method mastered by exceptional experts who were good at space-time law. Jian Wushuang's understanding of space-time law was far from being able to perform a teleportation method. However, the jade slip in his hand was imbued with a teleportation method. As soon as he smashed the jade slip, the teleportation method would kick into effect and immediately teleport him to another place. In other words, the jade slip was an excellent life-saving method. 3 treasures: Holy Treasure Moir Battle Armor, the destructive law-embedded baby-sized black beast statue, and life-saving jade slip containing a teleportation method. Jian Wushuang shuddered. The value of those 3 treasures was amazing. Among those 3 treasures, the Moir battle armor and beast statue were of no use to him. Although the jade slip was equivalent to an additional life-saving trump card for Jian Wushuang, it could only be used once. In the future, he could crush the jade slip and escape if he was in a desperate situation, a life-and-death crisis that he could not resolve. However, it did not guarantee absolute success. Saber Master, who was driven to desperation by Jian Wushuang, did not crush the jade slip in the end. It was useless to crush the jade slip in the first place because he was in a different space-time. He was in a secret realm under the influence of a unique space-time method that nullifies the jade slip's teleportation method. If he similarly met a top expert who was good at space-time law outside the secret realm, the jade slip's teleportation method might not be able to help him escape. Nonetheless, those 3 treasures were pleasant surprises for Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had gotten too many treasures in one go in addition to the golden feather phantom mirror, purple imperial bell, and holy treasure battle saber. In addition, Saber Master, Hong Chun, Long Xianzi, and Devilish Wind King were grand ultimate god experts, and wealthy, especially Saber Master, who was the leader of a faction within the Crimson Stone Fort. The numerous resources those people once possessed fell into Jian Wushuang's hands. There were also a couple of corpse puppets. Devilish Wind King had previously obtained a gold-armored corpse puppet and a silver-armored corpse puppet. Hong Chun received 4 bronze-armored corpse puppets, where Jian Wushuang had killed 2 of them while the other 2 were still in great shape. Those corpse puppets had now fallen into Jian Wushuang's hands. After he properly refined those corpse puppets, they would be controlled by him. Those corpse puppets had the combat power of a peak grand ultimate god, a powerful high-level grand ultimate god, and 2 ordinary high-level grand ultimate gods, after all. Not forgetting, Jian Wushuang had received 5 golden Huangji pills at the beginning that were of equally extraordinary value. After adding all those treasures, Jian Wushuang had made a windfall fortune. It's indeed a fortune, a windfall fortune. Jian Wushuang was over the moon over the surprises. Soon, he managed to recover from feeling surprised before starting to refine those corpse puppets in the cave. Although no one was controlling those corpse puppets, it would still take a while for Jian Wushuang to refine them. It was not too bad, since had Jian Wushuang tried to refine the Moir battle armor or the Holy Treasure defensive armor, it would have taken a much longer time, and he had no idea when it would be completed. Therefore, it explained the reason Saber Master was unable to use the Moir battle armor in the duel against Jian Wushuang, as he did not have time to refine it. A month soon passed. The 4 corpse puppets were finally refined and completely under Jian Wushuang's control. I have strong combat power on hand from today onward. A gold-armored corpse puppet, a silver-armored corpse puppet, 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets, Old Snake, and myself. My Sword Alliance combat power should be comparable to Danyang Continent's top forces when based purely on the highest grand ultimate god's combat power, right? Jian Wushuang smiled. He knew that there were a lot of activities occurring in the Danyang Continent under the radar, which placed Yin Suer in a very difficult situation. Chapter 2749. Meeting Yin Suer, Jian Wushuang once again returned to the sacred palace with his disciple status. He immediately went to meet Palace Keeper Sizhen within a magnificent-looking palace upon his arrival. Palace Keeper Sizhen, please help me send a message to the Fort Master and tell her that I'd like to see her, said Jian Wushuang with a smile. Palace Keeper Sizhen frowned and looked at Jian Wushuang. You want to see the Fort Master? Jian Yi, you may not know about this, but the relationship between the factions within Crimson Stone Fort is very delicate during this period, and there are signs of chaos happening. I suggest if you don't have very urgent matters. Jian Wushuang waved his hand before Palace Keeper Sizhen could finish and said, Palace Keeper Sizhen, please send a message, as I want to see her, because of some major issue which will affect the situation within Crimson Stone Fort. In that case, wait a moment as I send a message to the Fort Master now. Palace Keeper Sizhen immediately sent a message to Yin Suer before receiving a reply within a short moment. Jian Yi, the Fort Master, said she'll find time to see you later. She hopes what you want to tell her is really very important, said Palace Keeper Sizhen. Don't worry. Jian Wushuang smiled confidently. Jian Wushuang waited quietly in the magnificent palace. A tall and beautiful woman with an oval face who was wearing an ice blue gown appeared in the palace after half a day. The beautiful woman was none other than Yin Suer. Jian Yi, what can I do for you? Yin Suer looked cold. There's something about Saber Master, answered Jian Wushuang. Saber Master? Yin Suer was surprised. There were 7 factions within the Crimson Stone Fort. Although Saber Master belonged to a small faction, his faction still carried a lot of weight and influence in the Crimson Stone Fort. In addition, Saber Master was rather powerful with similar strength as Blood Thunder King, who controlled the Crimson Stone official army, with only weaker being weaker than the Fort Master and Grand Elder Yunshan, who were peak Grand Ultimate Gods. Therefore, Yin Suer had never considered Saber Master as someone paltry. What's the matter with Saber Master? Yin Suer looked at Jian Wushuang curiously. Fort Master, you probably haven't got this news yet, but he's dead, said Jian Wushuang with a grin. What did you say? Yin Suer was shocked to hear the news. Palace Keeper Sizhen had also been alerted. Jian Yi, did you say that Saber Master is dead? How can this be possible? I just got the news that Saber Master had gone to cultivate in seclusion not long ago. He seems to be at a very important cultivation stage and told his followers not to disturb him unless necessary. Yin Suer looked at Jian Wushuang dubiously. Jian Wushuang gave a simple wave before a purple battle saber appeared in his hand. Fort Master, do you recognize this battle saber? Jian Wushuang smiled. This Yin Suer and Palace Keeper Sizhen's pupils constricted as they looked at the saber and were startled. Palace Keeper Sizhen said, This battle saber indeed belongs to Saber Master. I've seen him use this many times and can't be wrong about it. How did this battle saber appear in your hands? Is Saber Master really dead? Jian-E, how did Saber Master die? Why is his battle saber with you? Did you kill him? Insur frowned slightly. She initially did not believe Saber Master was dead. However, she knew it must be true the moment she saw the battle saber. Insur was immediately reminded that Jian Wushuang could be the person who killed Saber Master, since the battle saber was with him. However, she was still uncertain, as even she might not succeed in killing Saber Master. How can Jian-E possibly kill Saber Master? It doesn't matter how he died and who killed him. What's important is that he's now dead. The faction he belongs to will definitely fall apart without a leader in control. The entire Crimson Stone fort might be affected and turn chaotic. Fort Master, you have to make early preparations, said Jian Wushuang. Insur and Palace Keeper Si Jun looked solemn. Saber Master was rather influential in the Crimson Stone fort. His death would indeed cause a great deal of impact in the Crimson Stone fort. The most important matter was his faction's collapse might also in turn affect the situation of several other factions. Although there were incessant internal conflicts among the Crimson Stone fort for years, there were no overt conflicts. There were the occasional assassinations, but the situation was under control nonetheless. The situation in Crimson Stone fort might be disrupted with Saber Master's death. Saber Master's death will definitely wreak havoc in Crimson Stone fort. This is definitely an excellent opportunity for me to take advantage of the chaos to wipe out the other factions and unify Crimson Stone fort. However, my current strength may not be enough for me to carry out the plan, said Insur coldly. Saber Master's death and the subsequent chaotic future situation were seemingly a good opportunity for her. However, it was true that she was not powerful enough to handle the situation. Her current strength was inadequate even to go against Grand Elder Yunshan or Blood Thunder King's faction. It was absolutely impossible for her to completely smoothen out all the major factions. The best scenario was she might get lucky and reap more benefits from those factions, but gaining control over them would be challenging. Fort Master alone may not be enough to take this opportunity to smoothen out the other factions, but matters will be different with my assistance, said Jian Wushuang with a smile. You. Insur looked at Jian Wushuang quizzically. Palace Keeper Si Jun was also staring at Jian Wushuang. Jian-E, I know you're the Sword Alliance master that has been stirring up the situation in the Danyang continent over this period of time. Am I right? Insur asked. She had always paid attention to Jian Wushuang and knew Jian Wushuang was creating his own force. Although Jian Wushuang had never revealed the name of the force he had created, Insur and Crimson Stone Fort had the capabilities to easily discover it. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. It's indeed amazing to be able to create a huge sword alliance in the Danyang continent within just a few decades. In fact, the Sword Alliance is as powerful as first-rated forces, but there's still a long way to go for the Sword Alliance before it is capable of threatening the situation in the Crimson Stone Fort or exercising influence over Danyang continent. Insur shook her head. A long way to go. That's not necessarily. Jian Wushuang smiled with absolute confidence. He then waved his hand before 4 figures appeared out of thin air beside him. Those 4 figures were the 4 corpse puppets he obtained from the secret realm. Fort Master, can you see what these are? Jian Wushuang smiled. Are these war puppets? No, they must be some cultivators, but they're so lifeless. These must be corpse puppets. Insur narrowed her eyes. You're right. They're corpse puppets. I'll get them to greet you. Jian Wushuang grinned before waving his hand, as the gold-armored corpse puppet immediately raised its head. Chapter 2750, Handling the Treasures Boom. The gold-armored corpse puppet made a move without any warnings. It discharged a horrifying breath of aura before soon appearing in front of Sewer, using just one long stride, and swiftly drew out a battle saber. Sewer's eyes sank slightly as she lifted her jade-like hands. A spear appeared in her hands as she spun her spear around and thrust, clang. The gold-armored corpse puppet was instantly sent back into its original position when her spear and the gold-armored corpse puppet collided. Sewer was slightly shaken up with traces of surprise in her eyes. A peak grand ultimate god. Sewer's beautiful eyes were frozen on the gold-armored corpse puppet's body. How do you feel, Master? Jian Wushuang smiled. Jian, where did you get this corpse puppet? Sewer asked solemnly. Well, I don't want to disclose how I got it, but I wonder about your thoughts on it. Do you think this gold-armored corpse puppet in my hands can compete with ordinary peak grand ultimate god? Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. Sewer pondered for a moment and replied, yes, this corpse puppet is enough to fight against the ordinary peak grand ultimate go in a one-on-one duel. Even if I take a shot by myself, I'm probably capable of suppressing it with my strength. That's indeed the case. This gold-armored corpse puppet is completely under my control. In addition, I also have a silver-armored corpse puppet and 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets, which are equivalent to 1 extremely powerful high-level grand ultimate gods and 2 ordinary high-level grand ultimate gods. Considering all of them, and myself, I wonder if you think the Sword Alliance can change the situation within the Crimson Stone Fort. Jian Wushuang explained with a wide grin. A gold-armored corpse puppet, a silver-armored corpse puppet, and 2 bronze-armored corpse puppet. Sewer narrowed her eyes to focus while deep in thought. She then nodded after a while. If we have these corpse puppets helping us alongside my careful planning and execution, I think there may be a chance to succeed. I don't think many have found out about Saber Master's death yet. I guess probably only a few of his faction's henchmen might have found out about it, but I'm sure they will try to keep the news to themselves, so there shouldn't be any chaos within the Crimson Stone Fort for now. Fort Master, you should have time to prepare, said Jian Wushuang with a smile. Sewer's eyes lit up, and she continued, that's right. However, the other top forces in Danyang Continent have also been eyeing the Crimson Stone Fort apart from the major factions who wanted to expand their influence within Crimson Stone Fort. I'm afraid those top forces won't miss the chance to reap benefits if they notice Crimson Stone Fort is going through some major changes. Fort Master, rest assured that it'll be putting pressure on those top forces as much as possible during this period to distract them, said Jian Wushuang reassuringly with a faint smile. Jian Wushuang spoke after a momentary pause. By the way, there's one more matter I wish to discuss. I have a few treasures with me, but unfortunately don't have the right channels to sell them. Could you please help me with them, Fort Master? What are those treasures? Sewer looked curiously at Jian Wushuang. She gained a lot the last time Jian Wushuang gave her a royal blood gem weighing 130 caddies, which helped relieve a fair bit of her pressure. She wondered what good things Jian Wushuang would share with her at that moment. Fort Master, you should take a look at the battle armor I have first. Jian Wushuang took out the tattered battle armor. This is a pinnacle, heavenly treasure battle armor. Sewer was surprised before started shaking her head. It seems powerful, and perhaps considered top tier among pinnacle heavenly treasures. But it's a pity this battle armor has been damaged with an exorbitant repair cost. Jian, are you going to exchange this battle armor for divine elixir pills or the primordial stones? Sewer asked. Only divine elixir pills, replied Jian Wushuang. Your battle armor is of an extremely high level. It'll probably be worth 7,000 to 8,000 divine elixir pills if it's in good condition. However, its value has probably halved now that it's been badly damaged. I can get you at most 3,000 divine elixir pills, explained Yin Sewer. 3,000 divine elixir pills isn't bad at all. Jian Wushuang smiled before taking out something else. He took out a saber and a crimson battle saber. Yin Sewer and Palace Keeper Sijun were taken aback to see the crimson battle saber. Holy treasure! It's a holy treasure battle saber. It's a holy treasure? Even Yin Sewer was shocked when Jian Wushuang took out the holy treasure battle saber. It was a holy treasure after all. Jian Yi, you have a holy treasure? Palace Keeper Sijun stared wide-eyed at Jian Wushuang. I was lucky, Jian Wushuang answered with a smile. He was not lying, as he was indeed lucky to be able to get so many treasures from the secret realm. This battle saber isn't of much use to me. I wanted to let the gold-armored corpse puppet use it, but the gold-armored corpse puppet was only a corpse puppet after all, and may not be able to utilize the holy treasure battle saber's full potential. Hence, it has very limited room to improve its combat prowess. However, I do need a lot of divine elixir pills to improve my cultivation realm, so I need your help to take care of this battle saber for me. Jian Wushuang explained his situation with a smile. Yin Sewer could not help but feel overwhelmed when she heard Jian Wushuang. A holy treasure! Even when Yin Sewer's father, Crimson Stone Saint, was alive, he had the opportunity to only come across one throughout his entire life, which went missing upon his passing. Therefore, there was no holy treasure in the Crimson Stone Fort at that instance. In other words, Yin Sewer did not have a holy treasure on hand. However, did Jian Wushuang just casually took out a holy treasure and asked for her help to dispose of it? Jian Yi, this is a holy treasure after all. It's not any ordinary piece of treasure. Are you sure you want to exchange it for divine elixir pills? Yin Sewer was puzzled. Of course. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. In Jian Wushuang's opinion, a treasure was of no value if he could not use it. A treasure that was not usable was only a piece of useless ornament. It was better to exchange it for much-needed resources. I'll find a way to sell your battle saber as soon as possible in that case, said Yin Sewer. Do you know how many divine elixir pills this battle saber can be exchanged for? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, I haven't handled a holy treasure weapon before, so I don't know the specific price for it. However, it shouldn't be difficult to sell for a few 10,000 divine elixir pills, said Yin Sewer. 50,000 divine elixir pills. I need 50,000 divine elixir pills. I wonder if it's possible. Jian Wushuang asked. Yes. Yin Sewer nodded. Although she had no idea of the specific price of a holy treasure, it shouldn't be difficult to sell it for 50,000 divine elixir pills or more. That's fine. Jian Wushuang smiled. He had previously accumulated a certain amount of divine power. If he could get his hands on 50,000 divine elixir pills in addition to those divine elixir pills he obtained from killing Saber Master and the other grand ultimate gods, he should be able to make another cultivation realm breakthrough and cross over to the peak heaven ultimate god realm. Chapter 2751. A gift. Jian Wushuang's divine power would improve tremendously once he made a breakthrough to the peak heaven ultimate god realm, as it would also bring about a great improvement in his overall strength. At that time, he should be able to calmly face peak grand ultimate gods in a duel. Fort Master, I shall be waiting for your news. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and immediately turned to leave. Yin Sewer and Palace Keeper Sijun remained standing in place after Jian Wushuang left from being overwhelmed by what transpired. What do you think, Palace Keeper Sijun? Yin Sewer looked at Palace Keeper Sijun. Palace Keeper Sijun replied, It's unbelievable. I could see Jian Yi had great talents when he first appeared in front of me, but his strength at that time was still rather weak, so I can't see the possibility of him influencing Crimson Stone Fort's situation. However, Only a few decades have passed since, and he has already gained control over such a powerful force. Palace Keeper Sijun was indeed shocked and impressed. Jian Wushuang had just shown them a gold-armored corpse puppet, a silver-armored corpse puppet, and 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets, which were equivalent to the combat power of a Pete Grand Ultimate God, a very powerful high-level Grand Ultimate God, and 2 ordinary high-level Grand Ultimate Gods. No one in Crimson Stone Fort's various factions or the Danyang continent's top forces dared trifle with such a strong lineup. In addition, there were the treasures Jian Wushuang just took out. I was shocked the last time he took out the 230 caddies of royal blood gem. This time around, he showed us such a valuable holy treasure that even Crimson Stone Fort is unable to produce. Even Crimson Stone Saint only had one holy treasure when he was still around. There were various expressions shown on Palace Keeper Sijun's face. Yin Suer also nodded solemnly. I also feel it's unbelievable. I think Saber Master's strength is ranked top 10 in the entire Danyang continent, right? I might not even be able to kill him, but he's now dead, and his weapon is with Jian Yi. His death obviously has a lot to do with Jian Yi. This guy definitely has some incredible techniques. I really don't know how many secrets he's hiding. Fortunately, Crimson Stone Saint invited him to help you, and is our friend, and not a foe. Otherwise, Palace Keeper Sijun narrowed his eyes. Although Jian Wushuang only exuded the aura of a primary-level Grand Ultimate God, both Yin Suer and Palace Keeper Sijun dared not look down upon Jian Wushuang, as his existence would deeply disturb them if Jian Wushuang were their enemy. Yin Suer solemnly said, "Regardless, Jian Yi now controls such a powerful force, and the Sword Alliance seems to have risen very quickly. We may be able to gain heaps of benefits from this opportunity with his help. Palace Keeper Sijun, you should prepare as soon as possible now that Saber Master's death isn't known to many, and while we still have time and the situation in Crimson Stone Fort is stable for the time being." Yes. Palace Keeper Sijun nodded. Yin Suer was deep in thought on dealing with the Holy Treasure Battle Saber given by Jian Wushuang, and obtained 50,000 divine elixir pills for him. Jian Wushuang immediately returned to the Sword Alliance after leaving the Sacred Palace. He sat on the throne in the lofty hall while listening to Xiao Tiexin, Long Shan, and the others reporting on the many things happening in the Sword Alliance during his absence. The Sword Alliance had long established itself amongst first-rated forces, with its combat power growing stronger alongside the Divine Sword Army's growth and expansion. It became extremely powerful among the first-rated forces that no one in the Danyang continent dared to get on their wrong side. Its overall strength was constantly improving due to the large number of resources being pumped in. Jian Wushuang just nodded slightly after listening to their updates. He had handed over the Sword Alliance's management to Xiao Tiexin and the others a long time ago. Jian Wushuang might not have trusted the others completely, but he had absolute trust in Xiao Tiexin. "All of you may go now. Sheener, would you go and get Old Snake for me?" Jian Wushuang asked. "Yes." Xiao Tiexin and the others immediately left. Old Snake met Jian Wushuang not long after. "Alliance Master." Elder Snake humbly saluted Jian Wushuang. "Old Snake, how are you doing in the Sword Alliance?" Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. "I think I'm doing fine, but matters aren't as casual as before," replied Old Snake. Old Snake was an independent expert and used to be carefree. It was normal for him to feel a little uncomfortable while adapting to the changes after accepting Jian Wushuang's invitation and becoming the first elder in the Sword Alliance Elder's Palace. "Take your time to get used to it." Jian Wushuang smiled before flipping his hand and taking out a pill. "Old Snake, what do you think this is?" Jian Wushuang handed the pill to Old Snake. Old Snake looked at the pill before his pupils shrank sharply. Such a potent, majestic aura. Is this the Huangji Golden Pill? Old Snake sounded excited. Huangji Golden Pill was extremely useful to Grand Ultimate God cultivators. It was no different for Old Snake. He had stayed at the primary level Grand Ultimate God realm for a long time and faced a bottleneck in his journey to make a breakthrough. The Huangji Golden Pill would be very helpful to him in improving his cultivation realm. Under normal circumstances, the chance of a primary level Grand Ultimate God making a breakthrough and reaching the high-level Grand Ultimate God realm after swallowing the pill was around 30%. However, Old Snake was stuck at the bottleneck for so many years that his pure divine power and perception of the laws and principles had reached the requirements for making a breakthrough. The probability of him making a breakthrough was at least 50% if he meticulously made preparations for the breakthrough. The 50% chance of making a breakthrough was enough for Old Snake to do everything possible and fight for a Huangji Golden Pill. It was even more so with the Huangji Golden Pill placed in front of him. Alliance Master, this Huangji Golden Pill. Old Snake was very excited, but looked a little hesitant as he dared not directly ask Jian Wushuang for the pill. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly before throwing the Huangji Golden Pill to Old Snake. It's of course for you, since you're the first elder in the Sword Alliance Elder's Palace, and this Huangji Golden Pill is useful to you. Old Snake was trembling in disbelief, but immediately asked, "Are you really giving it to me? Alliance Master, don't you need this Huangji Golden Pill?" "Do I need it? It's of no use to me." Jian Wushuang shook his head and smiled. He was indeed telling the truth. The Huangji Golden Pill had great effects on ordinary cultivators, be it a Heaven Ultimate God or a Grand Ultimate God. However, its effect was minimal for Jian Wushuang. It's nothing but just one Huangji Golden Pill. In addition, I have more than one. Jian Wushuang smiled and immediately flipped his hand to take out 4 identical Huangji Golden Pills. Chapter 2752. The Namelist of Experts. You have 4 more? Old Snake was dumbfounded when he saw Jian Wushuang take out 4 more Huangji Golden Pill. Huangji Golden Pill was extremely scarce not only in Danyang Holy Domain, but even the entire 9 realms of Golden Crow. The previous pill that appeared as Star Picking Pavilion Auction's final treasure had caused a huge sensation. In the end, the top forces alongside their Grand Ultimate Gods went forth and fought frantically for the pill. It was hard to get even one Huangji Golden Pill, as it took great opportunity and methods to obtain it. Jian Wushuang surprisingly took out 5 Huangji Golden Pills at that moment. Old Snake was certain the Danyang continent would turn into tumult if news spread that Jian Wushuang alone had 5 Huangji Golden Pills, with countless experts making their way to get their hands on those pills without a doubt. Jian Wushuang was toying with the 4 Huangji Golden Pills in his hand when he murmured, "I have 5 Huangji Golden Pills, but they're of no use to me. I still have 4 left after giving Old Snake 1. I'd better put these 4 to better use." Jian Wushuang looked at Old Snake. "Old Snake, you were previously an independent expert. Tell me, do you think those other independent experts like yourself will agree to join me if I offer them these Huangji Golden Pills?" Old Snake frowned and pondered for a moment before speaking. The Huangji Golden Pill is extremely valuable and appealing to Grand Ultimate Gods, especially some Grand Ultimate Gods who had been stuck in a cultivation bottleneck for a long time. The Huangji Golden Pill is of great help to Grand Ultimate Gods in helping them to make a breakthrough. It's something precious for them to fight for. Therefore, I think most of those experts would agree if you put the Huangji Golden Pills up as an offer to recruit those Grand Ultimate Gods. Of course, there are some experts with weird tempers who might stick to their principles. Those experts won't join any forces even if they wanted a Huangji golden pill. In other words, you mean it's entirely up to the experts to decide? Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. Yes. Old Snake nodded. Jian Wushuang's eyes wandered as he thought of an idea and said, Old Snake, you have been in the Danyang continent for so long and should have known quite a few experts here. Can you recommend a few powerful grand ultimate gods to me? I can. What are your criteria for these grand ultimate gods? Old Snake asked. Firstly, they must be powerful and have the qualifications worthy of me giving them these Huangji golden pills. Secondly, they must not be vicious or some bloodthirsty devils, and not be too close with any of the other top forces. Lastly, the most important matter is that their credibility must be guaranteed, said Jian Wushuang. Old Snake was startled. Credibility? Are you worried they won't keep to their word? Jian Wushuang nodded. Yes, I'm offering them the Huangji golden pills to enhance their strength, so we'll give them the Huangji golden pills in advance. I don't want to see them ignoring the terms and conditions agreed upon and left after being given these Huangji golden pills. Even though I could kill them to vent my anger, it's a waste of Huangji golden pills. Understood. Please wait while I quickly sort out a list of experts, said Old Snake. Jian Wushuang waited patiently. After half a day, Old Snake appeared once again in front of Jian Wushuang and handed Jian Wushuang a list with names of experts. Alliance Master, I've written a list of experts that we can target. There are 10 people on this list, in which among them are 3 high-level grand ultimate gods and 7 primary-level grand ultimate gods. All of them are very powerful and extremely eager to get their hands on some Huangji golden pills. As per your criterion, these 10 people have nothing to do with any top forces, but had some enmity with them. As for their credibility, these 10 people value their reputation, so they won't go back on their words after forging an agreement, said Old Snake. Jian Wushuang took the list and began to scrutinize it. He was not only provided with the names of those 10 grand ultimate gods, but also detailed information, including some of their achievements and experiences listed in great detail. Jian Wushuang looked carefully for a moment before nodding in satisfaction. He was very happy with those 10 on the list, especially 2 of them. Of those 2, one was Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, while the other one was a primary-level Grand Ultimate God with terrifying strength. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was famous in the Danyang continent and far more well-known than many other high-level Grand Ultimate Gods. The reason being Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was the first-ranked primary-level Grand Ultimate God recognized by the entire Danyang continent. He used to face off against 2 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods, while still only a primary-level Grand Ultimate God. Although he was at a disadvantage in the battle, the 2 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods could not harm him and ended up allowing him to escape. No one else in the Danyang continent held similar achievement records except Jian Wushuang. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was also very loyal to his wife. His wife, the love of his life, was accidentally killed by an expert from one of the top forces. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian immediately launched frenzied revenge and killed all those high-level experts of that particular force after finding out about it. However, his wife could not be brought back to life, no matter how much he avenged her. Therefore, his heart had become incapable of love from there on, which led to him being called Ju Xian. Furthermore, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was not only loyal but also extremely stubborn and arrogant according to the list's description. He would ensure he completed it regardless of whatever he wanted to do. On the same line of thought, he would also do his best to fulfill his promises. Jian Wushuang admired such character in terms of both strength and temperament. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was Jian Wushuang's first target choice in his recruitment. The second person was a high-level grand ultimate god called Strange Old Tom. He was called strange and old from living for too long. He was an expert from Crimson Stone Saints era. Strange Old Tom was already a famous high-level grand ultimate god before Crimson Stone Saints' emergence. Strange Old Tom was very famous in the Danyang continent due to his high ranking amongst high-level grand ultimate gods, being no inferior to Saber Master. He was stuck at the high-level grand ultimate god realm for too long and therefore eager to make a breakthrough. Chapter 2753, Winning Over Experts 1. Strange Old Tom has been in the high-level grand ultimate god realm bottleneck for too long. There's hearsay he has attempted in making a breakthrough to peak grand ultimate god realm several times, but failed. It seems that he has made his absolute best preparation from my observation. The Huangji Golden Pill isn't very effective for high-level Grand Ultimate God, as it can only increase the success probability by 10%, but it should be enough for him to do his best and fight for it, muttered Jian Wushuang. The information Jian Wushuang had on Strange Old Tong mentioned his rather strange behavior, but was someone who kept his words. Jian Wushuang no doubt longed to recruit such an expert. In addition to Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian and Strange Old Tong, the other 8 people on the list also had high credibility and great strength, which fulfilled the requirements Jian Wushuang had set forth, and hence were within his recruitment targets. Alliance Master, I'm in touch with a few of these 10 people on the list. Should I contact them and find out if they're interested? Old Snake suggested. Jian Wushuang shook his head. No need to be so troublesome. Can you find out where they are now? I'll personally make a trip to meet them. Alliance Master, you mean you plan to meet and recruit them in person? Old Snake was startled. Of course, let's start with Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. Where is he? Jian Wushuang asked. Jian Wushuang set off on his journey soon after learning Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin's location, at a barren mountain somewhere in the middle of some desolate, vast land. The hilly Palace Mountain, the place Gravel Castle was located. It was where Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian lived. Jian Wushuang's figure arrived in the void before the Gravel Castle and diffused a faint breath of divine power in the area. Swoosh! A small figure immediately skimmed out of the Gravel Castle and greeted Jian Wushuang. Who are you? Why are you here? A thin and weak woman wearing green stared closely at Jian Wushuang. Are you Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin's maid? Jian Wushuang glanced at the green-clad woman. Based on the information Jian Wushuang received, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian had a maid whom he rescued many years ago. The grateful maid stayed by Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin's side, and had feelings for Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. However, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian loved his deceased wife too much, and had closed his heart off after his wife's passing. The maid knew that very well, so she merely stayed beside Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin's as a maid, and never regretted her decision through all those years. Could you please report to your master that Sword Alliance Master Su Han is here to visit him? Can you kindly ask him to come out and meet me? Jian Wushuang asked with a polite smile. Sword Alliance Master? The green-clad woman was surprised. She had been with Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian for years, and was exposed to many matters in the Danyang continent. Naturally, she had heard of the Sword Alliance. The Sword Alliance Master's name. Su Han was famous in Danyang continent. He was known for his achievement of killing a primary-level Grand Ultimate God, while still a Peak Heaven Ultimate God. Alliance Master, please wait a moment as I report to my master. The green-clad woman immediately went into the castle. After a long time, the green-clad woman was out of the castle again. My master invites you to join him in the castle, said the green-clad woman. Jian Wushuang immediately walked toward the gravel castle under the green-clad woman's guidance. Not long after, Jian Wushuang arrived in a vast hall with a man wearing black sitting at the top of the hall. The black-clothed man seemed to have been through a lot in his life, but his gaze looked indifferent. His dull eyes reflected his feelings of emptiness, which could be seen on his impassive face. He was indeed a man in great despair. "A pleasure to meet you, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian." Jian Wushuang smiled and looked at the Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, who seemed to have lost the capabilities to experience emotions. "I've heard of you, Alliance Master Su Han. What brings you here today?" asked Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. "I'm here to invite you to join the Sword Alliance." Jian Wushuang was very frank with his intentions and made it clear without beating around the bush. "Really?" Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was not surprised at all. He was a famous figure in Danyang continent for many years. Many forces had found him and explained their intention in the same manner as Jian Wushuang. He had gotten used to receiving recruitment invitations a long time ago. "Alliance Master Su Han, you might not know this, but several top forces like Crimson Stone Fort, Nanwu Palace, Life and Death Tower, Divine Demon Sect, and Dongfang Clan had come forward to invite me to join them. They offered me attractive terms in return, but I remained here in my place," said Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent. "I know a lot of forces would naturally want to invite you to join them with your level of strength. Those forces failed to recruit you probably for only one reason. The conditions they offered might not be attractive to you at all." "Are you saying you have something that's able to attract my attention?" asked Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. Jian Wushuang smiled without speaking as he flipped his hand and took out a Huangji golden pill. "Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, I wonder if this pill can attract your attention?" Jian Wushuang asked with a wide grin. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin's indifferent expression was startled the moment Jian Wushuang took out a Huangji golden pill. His eyes shrank sharply as his gaze was immediately locked onto the Huangji golden pill. Huangji golden pill. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin's complexion became extremely solemn all of a sudden. He had been in the primary level Grand Ultimate God realm for a long time and never had a chance to make a breakthrough. He was tempted when a Huangji golden pill was placed in front of him. "Alliance Master Su Han is so generous that you're willing to give away a Huangji golden pill to recruit me. The other top forces in Danyang continent don't dare to do what you just did," said Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. The top forces in the Danyang continent had previously offered Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian a sufficient amount that was rather attractive to him. However, those offers were nothing in comparison to the Huangji golden pill. The difference was too vast. It was, of course, also impossible for those top forces to produce a Huangji golden pill to recruit him. Firstly, the Huangji golden pill was a rare find that even those top forces had difficulty getting their hands on one. Secondly, they would leave it for their best and most loyal disciples even if they had one. They would certainly never use it to recruit a primary-level Grand Ultimate God. "I wonder if this pill is sufficient to entice you in joining the Sword Alliance," Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian glanced at Jian Wushuang, but shook his head after. "I must admit that though the Huangji golden pill is indeed very attractive, it's unfortunate that I still can't agree to join you." Chapter 2754. Winning over experts, too. "Oh." Jian Wushuang slightly frowned. "I'm just an overly stubborn person and won't change any decision I've made. I've said many years ago that I won't join any forces no matter the number of benefits given or whoever gives it. Therefore, I can only reject your kind offer, Alliance Master Su Han," said Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. Jian Wushuang smiled happily when he heard that without any hint of anger. Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian, why don't we exchange the conditions since you aren't willing to join any forces? I don't need you to join my Sword Alliance, but only need you to obey my orders for the next 1,000 years, which means the Sword Alliance is hiring you for 1,000 years with a single Huangji golden pill. What do you think? Hire me? Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian was moved by the suggestion. It was natural for him to be against directly joining and serving the Sword Alliance. However, if it was just a job with them, only hiring him for 1,000 years, matters would be different. Hiring him for 1,000 years meant he would be working for the Sword Alliance during that 1,000 years. However, he could leave without any hesitation once the 1,000-year period was up. He would not be a member of the Sword Alliance from the beginning till the end. Hence, it could be considered that he had never joined the Sword Alliance. As he was sitting on a chair in the Grand Hall, Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian tapped his fingers on the armchair as he started thinking in silence. He looked up again after a while. Alliance Master Su Han, I admit I can't think of any reasons to reject your offer. Jian Wushuang smiled when he heard that before throwing the Huangji golden pill to Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian with a wave of his hand. You can directly consume this Huangji golden pill and try making a breakthrough to a high-level Grand Ultimate God. However, I wonder how much time you'll need. Jian Wushuang asked. A maximum of 3 years. Regardless, if I've successfully made a breakthrough and become a high-level Grand Ultimate God within 3 years or not, I'll head to the Sword Alliance to obey your commands thereafter, said Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian. All right, I'll be waiting for you in the Sword Alliance. I hope you won't disappoint me. Jian Wushuang glanced at Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian before turning around and leaving. In the Grand Hall, the lady in green clothes stood beside Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian. Master, will you really head to the Sword Alliance after 3 years? The green-clothed lady looked at Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian in surprise. Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian smiled indifferently. Of course, since when have you seen me go against my words? The green-clothed lady was stunned. Alliance Master Su Han was willing to hand me the Huangji golden pill so early on because he believed in my character. What kind of a person would I be if I don't go to the Sword Alliance 3 years later? Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian asked. His right hand held on to the Huangji golden pill tightly while a calculative look flashed through his eyes. The Huangji golden pill was something he really needed. Jian Wushuang soon caught up with strange old Tong after leaving Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin's place. Huangji golden pill. A longing look also flashed through the eyes of a sloppy and dirty old man who was wearing ordinary-looking gray clothing as Jian Wushuang took the pill out. This Huangji golden pill will be yours if you agree to fight for my Sword Alliance for 1,000 years, said Jian Wushuang directly. Fight! The Sword Alliance had already become a first-rated force in the Danyang continent based on my understanding. Apart from that, the Alliance is considered one of the strongest first-rated forces. However, you're still thinking of ways to gather experts for a fight. Could you aim to be one of the pinnacle forces? Strange old Tong did not directly agree to Jian Wushuang's offer, but asked such questions instead. Yes, the Sword Alliance isn't satisfied with being one of the first-rated forces, said Jian Wushuang. If that's the case, the Sword Alliance might go against the Divine Demon Sect in the future? The look in strange old Tong's eyes sharpened. It's not a so-called possible, but a definite will. The next target of the Sword Alliance is the Divine Demon Sect, said Jian Wushuang directly. Great. I want this Huangji golden pill of yours, said strange old Tong. Jian Wushuang could not help but secretly smile. He had obtained information from Old Snake earlier that strange Old Tong had a weird way of doing things and had some accumulated grudges against several forces in the Danyang continent. The Divine Demon Sect was among the forces he had the deepest hatred from a long time ago. Now that Jian Wushuang had taken the Huangji Golden Pill out and directly highlighted the fact that the Sword Alliance would go against the Divine Demon Sect, strange Old Tong immediately agreed to it. I can give this Huangji Golden Pill to you now. You can try to make a breakthrough right now if you're well prepared. However, it'll wait for you for only 3 years. Will this 3-year time be enough? Jian Wushuang asked. 3 years? That's too short. I've previously tried multiple times to make a breakthrough to the peak grand ultimate god. Now that I have the Huangji Golden Pill to assist, this should be my chance with the greatest certainty, hence I naturally need to prepare to the best of my ability. As such, it'll be impossible without another 10 to 20 years. How about this? I'll follow and fight for you first, while I'll try making a breakthrough again when the Sword Alliance has some idle time, said strange Old Tong. All right. Jian Wushuang nodded. The strange old man then immediately followed Jian Wushuang as Jian Wushuang continued to win over other experts. There were 5 Huangji Golden Pills. He gave 1 to Old Snake, 1 to Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, and 1 to strange Old Tong. He also managed to win over 2 other experts on the list with the remaining 2 pills. Although they were only primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods, they promised to fight for the Sword Alliance for 1,000 years. There were 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods that were extremely strong on the expert list Old Snake previously gave him. However, Jian Wushuang only managed to find strange Old Tong, while one of the remaining 2 had disappeared many years ago, and nobody knew if he was dead or alive. The other person had also disappeared some time ago, and nobody knew that person's whereabouts. Therefore, Jian Wushuang could only invite primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. At that point, he had managed to win over 1 high-level Grand Ultimate God and 3 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods with those 4 Huangji Golden Pills. In addition, 1 or 2 out of those 3 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods might be able to make a breakthrough to the high-level Grand Ultimate God realm with the Huangji Golden Pills' assistance. I've used up all 5 Huangji Golden Pills. What I need to do next is to wait in silence. Jian Wushuang returned to the Sword Alliance and started waiting while meditating. News of Saber Master's death had not been disclosed, hence the Crimson Stone Fort and Danyang Continent were still quite peaceful. 3 years had passed in the flash. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian and 2 other experts that Jian Wushuang invited had come to the Sword Alliance. However, when they met Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian once again, the divine power omitted from him showed that he had reached the high-level Grand Ultimate God realm. Congratulations, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. Jian Wushuang looked at Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian with a smile on his face. It's all thanks to Alliance Master Su Han's Huangji Golden Pill, or it won't be so easy for me to make a breakthrough. A smile appeared on Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin's face, even though he had always been someone indifferent. Chapter 2755. About to take action. Mr. Ning, congratulations to you two. Jian Wushuang looked toward a middle-aged man who had sharp and eagle-like eyes beside them. That middle-aged man was Ning, a previously famous primary-level Grand Ultimate God in the Danyang Continent, who had already made a breakthrough to the high-level Grand Ultimate God after taking the Huangji Golden Pill. As for the last person, she was a lady with silver hair known as Lan Junju. She had also obtained a Huangji Golden Pill, but was not as lucky as the other 2 and did not become a high-level Grand Ultimate God. However, she had previously promised Jian Wushuang and would still fight for the Sword Alliance for 1,000 years, even though she did not manage to make a breakthrough. In addition, Old Snake, the earliest person to obtain the Huangji Golden Pill and join the Sword Alliance, had also successfully made a breakthrough to high-level Grand Ultimate God after consuming the Huangji Golden Pill. It meant that out of the 5 Huangji Golden Pills apart from the strange old Tong, who had not swallowed it, 3 out of the 4 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods had successfully made a breakthrough. Jian Wushuang had added 4 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods and a primary-level Grand Ultimate God to the Sword Alliance in one go with those 3 people making a breakthrough. Apart from that, Strange Old Tong was considered top tier among those 4 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods, and no weaker than Sabermaster. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was previously positioned in the top among primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. He was capable of fighting against 2 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods when he was a primary-level Grand Ultimate God. His breakthrough had increased his strength by leaps and bounds, bringing his combat prowess almost similar to Strange Old Tong. And Ing and Old Snake were also quite strong and not considered weaklings among high-level Grand Ultimate Gods after making their breakthrough. It could be said that all 4 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods had extremely strong combat power. Together with Jian Wushuang and the corpse puppets he controlled, those pinnacle forces might not even be comparable to the Sword Alliance when considering the combat power of those at the highest realm. Now that our highest realm combat powers have been increased by so much, it's time for the Sword Alliance to take action after being quiet for a couple of decades. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Jian Wushuang immediately gathered the Sword Alliance's higher management members. Longshan, what's the scale of the Divine Sword Army right now? Jian Wushuang asked. Alliance Master, the Divine Sword Army has increased to 500 people, and all of them are Heaven Ultimate Gods with great strength. Apart from that, their execution of the military formation and magic formation has been much more skillful after all these years. The current overall strength of the Divine Sword Army is still incomparable to the Crimson Stone, official army of the Crimson Stone Fort. However, the Divine Sword Army is strong enough to fight legions cultivated by any forces and defeat them head-on apart from the Crimson Stone official army, said Longshan confidently. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. The Divine Sword Army was something he formed with great sacrifice. It could be said that more than 90% of the resources he obtained had been given to the Divine Sword Army. That was also the reason the Divine Sword Army could grow to such a capacity within the short period of several decades. Gather the Divine Sword Army. We're leaving soon, said Jian Wushuang directly. Leaving? Young master plans to take action against the forces surrounding us. Xiao Tiexin immediately looked over at Jian Wushuang. The group of Sword Alliance's higher management also looked at Jian Wushuang in excitement. The Sword Alliance's strength was growing every day at that moment, as they were supported by a huge number of resources. Many of those in the higher management were unsatisfied with their current situation. All of them wanted to expand the Sword Alliance, and even if they were unable to make huge expansions, they wished for small ones whereby they could take over the second-rated and third-rated forces around them. However, Jian Wushuang constrained the experts of the Sword Alliance strictly and prohibited them from expanding since the Sword Alliance became one of the first-rated forces several decades ago. Therefore, the Sword Alliance had been extremely powerful for several decades, but without any territorial expansion. They had been longing to carry out an expansion since early on, but could only forcefully hold their urges back due to the deterrence of the Alliance Master. The Alliance Master had finally decided to make a move against the surrounding forces at that moment. Bring the stellar map over, ordered Jian Wushuang. Somebody immediately brought a large stellar map and opened it in the hall. The stellar map recorded the entire Danyang continent, including each force's territories. For example, the territories controlled by the Sword Alliance were also shown on the stellar map. Haha. It looks like there are quite a few forces in the area surrounding our Sword Alliance. Jian Wushuang looked at the distribution of forces on the stellar map. That's true. There are 4 second-rated forces and many third-rated forces around our territories. These forces have some conflicts with us across these years. However, our Sword Alliance did not make any large movements because of the constraint you've placed. Otherwise, these second-rated and third-rated forces would have been taken over by us long ago, said Xiao Tiexin. Previously, we weren't strong enough. Expanding unscrupulously will raise fear between those first-rated or even pinnacle forces, especially those who don't want us to break the balance they tried so hard to maintain. Famous people attract criticism. Once our Sword Alliance continues to expand unscrupulously, those pinnacle forces may directly take action against us. The Sword Alliance can't withstand a pinnacle force's attack at that time. Jian Wushuang smiled softly. That's how it was previously, but it's different now. The corners of Jian Wushuang's mouth slightly bent upward. Previously, the Sword Alliance was unable to fight a pinnacle force by themselves. Hence, he dared not act recklessly and had been restricting the Sword Alliance's experts to build up their strength first. At that moment, their top management's strength and core Heaven Ultimate God's combat power, including the Divine Sword Army, had improved, making him no longer afraid of those pinnacle forces. There was nothing he was afraid of at that point. Master, there are so many forces around this area. Which one should we take action against first, or should we directly deploy the Divine Sword Army to sweep out all of these forces? Xiao Tiexin asked. There are only some second-rated and third-rated forces around us. They aren't worth wasting our time. Our Sword Alliance has been quiet for a long time, hence let's make it a big one if we're going to make a move. We shall take action against that one. Jian Wushuang directly pointed at an area on the stellar map. There was a certain distance between that area and the territory controlled by the Sword Alliance, with several forces in between. Xiao Tiexin, Longshan, Dongshui, and the others had weird expressions on their faces upon seeing the target Jian Wushuang chose. Heavenly Blood Alliance. Master, you want to take action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance. Xiao Tiexin looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Why? Is it not possible? Jian Wushuang said with a snicker. The Heavenly Blood Alliance is the first-rated force of that area and considered extremely strong amongst first-rated forces. According to rumors, they have 3 grand ultimate gods, with one of them being a high-level grand ultimate god. The most important rumor mentioned that the Heavenly Blood Alliance has a close relationship with the Divine Demon Sect, with news that the Divine Demon Sect is secretly supporting the Heavenly Blood Alliance. Won't taking action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance means we're acting against the Divine Demon Sect. Chapter 2756. Destroy the Heavenly Blood Alliance. Won't taking action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance means we're acting against the Divine Demon Sect. The entire hall fell into a brief silence after Xiao Tiexin spoke. The Heavenly Blood Alliance alone was not too scary, and with its current strength, the Sword Alliance was qualified to challenge the Heavenly Blood Alliance. However, the Divine Demon Sect was different. It was one of the 5 top-tier forces in the Danyang continent. There were around a dozen first-rated forces with uncountable second-rated and third-rated forces in the Danyang continent. However, there were only 5 pinnacle forces. Those 5 pinnacle forces were deeply rooted and extremely strong. Those pinnacle forces would only fight among themselves under normal circumstances, which other forces would dare to provoke them. However, the Alliance Master wanted to take action against the Divine Demon Sect at that moment. Master, are you serious? Xiao Tiexin looked toward Jian Wushuang. Of course, when I say we're taking action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance, we're taking action against it. There is nothing for our Sword Alliance to fear, even if the Divine Demon Sect comes to cause us troubles later on. Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently before directly giving orders. Longshan, immediately gather the Divine Sword Army and depart for the Heavenly Blood Alliance's territory. You might travel past the territories of several forces on the way. If they are only second-rated or third-rated forces with no grand ultimate gods personally attending to them, wipe them out to clear the path. Dong Shui, get ready to completely take over the Heavenly Blood Alliance's territory. Yes. Longshan and Dong Shui nodded seriously. Master, what do you plan to do now? Xiao Tiexin looked at Jian Wushuang. I'll rush toward Heavenly Blood Alliance with Old Snake and our guest elders before the Divine Sword Army arrives. We'll get rid of their 3 grand ultimate gods, said Jian Wushuang. All those who were present were surprised when they heard that. Alliance Master was going over at that moment to wipe out the Heavenly Blood Alliance's grand ultimate gods. There were 3 grand ultimate gods, and one of them was even a high-level grand ultimate god. In addition, they only heard of an elder's palace in the Sword Alliance, but there was only one elder at that moment, who was Old Snake. Since when did the Sword Alliance have guest elders? Jian Wushuang did not explain to them and directly made a move after giving his orders. Those traveling with him included strange Old Tong, Zhu Xian, Old Snake, Aning, and Lan Junju. The 6 of them traveled quickly and rushed toward the Heavenly Blood Alliance's territory. The 6 of them had already arrived in the skies above the Heavenly Blood Alliance's lair in less than a day. Heavenly Blood City, the Heavenly Blood Alliance's lair. Alliance Master Su Han, do you plan to take action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance? Zhu Xian looked toward Jian Wushuang. Yes. Jian Wushuang immediately nodded. Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian frowned. Are you joking? Alliance Master Su Han, don't you know that the Heavenly Blood Alliance is being secretly supported by the Divine Demon Sect? There's even a spatial passage in the Heavenly Blood Alliance that connects to the Divine Blood Sect's lair according to rumors, such that the Divine Blood Sect can immediately send experts over via the spatial passage once something happens to the Heavenly Blood Alliance. Even if that's true, so what? Is Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian afraid? Jian Wushuang glanced at Zhu Xian with a smile. I'm not afraid. It's not difficult for us to wipe out a Heavenly Blood Alliance based on our strength, but I feel the more important matter is that we need to face the Divine Demon Sect thereafter. Is Alliance Master Su Han well prepared for that? Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian asked. Jian Wushuang smiled softly. Don't worry. I'm naturally prepared to face the Divine Demon Sect, since I dare to take action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance. All of you have nothing to worry about. In addition, the Divine Demon Sect isn't as scary as you guys imagined. That's right, it's just a Divine Demon Sect. It's not like I've never gone against them previously. On the other hand, strange Old Tong was completely fearless with excitement filling his eyes instead. He had a huge grudge against the Divine Demon Sect from the beginning and was extremely excited when he heard they were taking action against the Divine Demon Sect. Alliance Master Su Han, well, fight wholeheartedly for the Sword Alliance since we've accepted your invitation. However, we'd need to warn you first that if we're really placed in a terrible position, we won't die for your Sword Alliance, said Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian. Jian Wushuang said with a smile, I understand. All of you don't need to worry, as you're just employees of my Sword Alliance. I won't stop you from leaving if we're at the brink of life and death. However, we should take action and get rid of the Heavenly Blood Alliance first. It's not difficult to wipe out the Heavenly Blood Alliance, as long as we have taken precautions against the divine demon sect's experts rushing over. Old Tong, can you sneak into the Heavenly Blood City and find where the spatial passage is? Please destroy the spatial passage the moment we take action. Sure. Strange Old Tong nodded as his figure had already skimmed toward the Heavenly Blood City's entrance. Let's wait here for a moment, said Jian Wushuang. Zhu Xin, Old Snake, and Ing, and Lan Junju stood behind Jian Wushuang as they waited in silence. Less than half an hour later, Strange Old Tong sent a message saying he had already found the spatial passage's location and was hiding nearby, prepared to take action at any moment. Jian Wushuang smiled when he received the message. Let's go. It's time for us to take action. Jian Wushuang waved his hands as the group of 5 directly went toward the huge hall floating amid the void located at the heart of the city. There was a thin layer of crimson light surrounding the hall, which was a magic formation. It appeared to be quite unusual when they looked at it with their eyes, hence it could be concluded to certainly be quite strong. Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin, I heard rumors about how you're able to fight 2 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods, while as just a primary-level Grand Ultimate God. Your strength must have increased by leaps and bounds now that you've made a breakthrough. You're the strongest among the 6 of us apart from Strange Old Tong. We shall rely on you to resolve this magic formation, said Jian Wushuang with a smile. Sure. Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin glanced at the crimson magic formation before nodding and took his battle saber out of its sheath. Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin instantly moved and appeared in front of the crimson magic formation as he held the battle saber in his hands high. A special essence started to slowly spread. Heaven and earth seemed to turn indistinct and lonely in an instant. The void also became obscure, as Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin's figure could be faintly seen in the hazy area. Whoosh! A saber light was directly sent forward. The saber light was extremely fascinating and dazzling, yet also extremely elusive at the same time. The saber light skimmed past the void before a huge saber river appeared out of nowhere in the blink of an eye. It was as though an elusive region was being drawn. The void was then swallowed by a wave of silence. The saber light wave had already cut onto the crimson magic formation. Boom! A loud explosive sound could be heard before the crimson magic formation immediately brightened and revealed its powerful strength. Endless crimson lights appeared and crazily endured the incomparable yet elusive slash. The entire magic formation trembled crazily, which already startled those many Heavenly Blood Alliance's experts within the magic formation. Chapter 2757. Nobody will rescue you. Who is it? How dare you attack the Heavenly Blood Alliance's main lair? An angry howl filled the entire sky before a huge amount of people came skimming out from the Heavenly Blood Alliance's main lair. The 3 people leading the way were Heavenly Blood Alliance's 3 Grand Ultimate Gods. The person who yelled aloud was the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master, who was a high-level Grand Ultimate God. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master looked with unprecedented anger at the person who activated the elusive saber light. That's Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master's facial expression darkened. He knew who Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin was, but the Heavenly Blood Alliance had never offended that Grand Ultimate God. However, Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin was attacking the Heavenly Blood Alliance's main territory at that moment. The crimson magic formation trembled violently, but soon calmed down. However, the elusive saber light had already dispersed. It didn't break. Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xin's facial expression slightly changed, but he took action once again. Clank! It was still an extremely elusive and scary saber-light that was much larger and stronger than the previous. The saber-light once again hit on the Crimson Magic Formation, with the only difference being the Crimson Magic Formation looked as though it was going to break. This is bad. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master's facial expression darkened as he noticed the Crimson Magic Formation had reached its limit. Finally, the entire Crimson Magic Formation could not endure the Saberlight's horrendous strength and immediately fell apart. Once the Magic Formation had fallen, the entire Heavenly Blood Alliance's lair was exposed in the open. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, good work! A hearty laugh sounded as Jian Wushuang and the others skimmed over from the void they were located before landing beside Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. These people, Heavenly Blood Alliance Master, only noticed Jian Wushuang and the others at that moment. Old Snake, and Ing, Lan Junju, and the person standing in the middle is Su Han of the Sword Alliance. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master narrowed his eyes. He recognized all those people standing in front of him and realized that Jian Wushuang was the person leading them. Alliance Master Su Han, there seemed to be no grudges between Heavenly Blood Alliance and Sword Alliance. What is the meaning of you bringing people here and destroying the Heavenly Blood Alliance's important formation? The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master looked at Jian Wushuang with cold eyes. There's nothing special. I'm just taking a leisure walk at your Heavenly Blood Alliance and wiping it out while I'm doing that, said Jian Wushuang with a soft smile. Wipe out our Heavenly Blood Alliance. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master's facial expression darkened. The Heavenly Blood Alliance's many experts also had angry expressions on their faces. However, right at that moment, boom, an explosion sound accompanied by a wave of strong divine power could be felt exploding directly from below them before sounds of angry yells from some experts could be heard. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master immediately looked toward the source of the sound, only narrowed his eyes by what he witnessed. The spatial passage had been destroyed. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master's facial expression darkened greatly. At the same time, an overpowering aura wave also came skimming forward. It was a dirty and sloppy old man. The divine power coming off the sloppy old man had already reached the peak of a high-level grand ultimate god. Strange Old Tong, it's you! The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master and those many experts from the Heavenly Blood Alliance gritted their teeth as they said that. The Heavenly Blood Alliance was secretly supported by the Divine Demon Sect, with many of their experts originating from the Divine Demon Sect. The hatred between Strange Old Tong and the Divine Demon Sect was written very deeply in their blood. Heavenly Blood Alliance Master, it's been a long time. I wish you well. Strange Old Tong smiled coldly as he stared at the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master. We're in huge trouble. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master had a darkened expression on his face. Although the Heavenly Blood Alliance was one of the first-rated forces, they only had 3 Grand Ultimate Gods, with him being the only high-level Grand Ultimate God. However, the company that Jian Wushuang brought over apart from himself were a total of 4 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods and 1 primary-level Grand Ultimate God, which all of them were extremely strong. It was absolutely easy for such a lineup to wipe out their members purely with higher combat power. Apart from that, the spatial passage had been destroyed by the Strange Old Tong. Even if he immediately sent a message to the Divine Demon Sect, they would not be able to immediately send help. The Heavenly Blood Alliance's situation was really worrisome. Alliance Master Su Han, it looks like your Sword Alliance has really made up your mind to take action against my Heavenly Blood Alliance. The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master stared at Jian Wushuang with a cold look in his eyes. "Of course. Why would I gather such a big group of people if that isn't the case?" said Jian Wushuang while smiling. "Alliance Master Suhan, I'm sure you're kept in the dark on the true origins of Heavenly Blood Alliance. Heavenly Blood Alliance is supported by the Divine Demon Sect. If you dare take action against us, the Divine Demon Sect will do their best to wipe out the Sword Alliance," yelled the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master with a deep voice. "Ha ha, are you trying to scare me with the Divine Demon Sect?" Jian Wushuang could not help but scoff. "I certainly knew about the background of your Heavenly Blood Alliance before deciding to take action against you. So what about the Divine Demon Sect? I'm taking action against the Divine Demon Sect." Heavenly Blood Alliance Master, listen carefully. The Heavenly Blood Alliance will be wiped out today, and nobody will be able to save you. I mean by what I've said. Jian Wushuang's cold voice could be heard throughout the entire Heavenly Blood City. The Heavenly Blood Alliance experts' facial expressions darkened when they heard that. "Everyone take action. Don't let all three grand ultimate gods of the Heavenly Blood Alliance go, and kill all of those high-level experts. As for the others, kill those who fought back," ordered Jian Wushuang. Zhu Xian, Old Snake, and Ing, Lan Junju, and Old Tong, who were behind him, looked at each other before taking action. Boom, 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 boom. 5 extremely strong auras immediately exploded as war instantly broke out. "There's hope as long as we are still alive. Let's escape." The Heavenly Blood Alliance Master immediately made his decision and exchanged looks with both primary-level grand ultimate gods behind him before turning around to escape. They knew there was a huge power difference between both parties. The 3 of them did not have any room to retaliate if they engaged, so they could only escape as experts in the grand ultimate god level. They were really good at protecting their lives, such that even a grand ultimate god more powerful than them would fail to make them stay if they really wanted to escape. If they escaped at that moment, and the Divine Demon Sect immediately took action after all that, they could easily have their revenge. Jian Wushuang and the others standing in front of them, including the Sword Alliance, would be completely wiped away after that. However, Jian Wushuang had been thinking about preventing them from escaping since early on. Therefore, the moment those 3 were prepared to make a move, hum, great amount of golden light streams immediately extended. The golden light stream's expansion speed was so much faster compared to those 3 grand ultimate gods' escaping speed that those streams covered a great area of the void in the blink of an eye, which also engulfed those 3 grand ultimate gods. A golden light domain immediately expanded and suppressed them. At the same time, the 10,000-foot-tall golden god shadow had already risen behind Jian Wushuang as he pointed his finger and formed the prison of punishment. Chapter 2758. The Fury Divine Demon Sect, a humongous golden prison, also appeared out of thin air and sealed up the entire void. Both the golden light domain and prison of punishment had superimposed. Rumble. The 3 Heavenly Blood Alliance experts who frenziedly escaped immediately felt a strong suppression. Around 20% to 30% of their power had been directly suppressed, with the most crucial point being a huge decrease in their speed. This domain, deep asterisk eminent, were in huge trouble. Those 3's facial expressions were extremely dark as they immediately tried every means to escape from the domain. However, they were stuck in the extremely strong golden prison, and it was almost impossible for them to break the golden prison. Therefore, those 3 did not even have any opportunities to escape before all 5 of them, Old Tong, Zhu Xian, Old Snake, and Ing, and Lan Junju, attacked them. "Leave the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master to me," said Grand Ultimate God Zhu Xian coldly as he directly went after the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master. The remaining 4 glanced at each other speechlessly. Moments later, both primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods were killed by those 4 people. As for the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master, he had a heated fight with Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion, which resulted in him being completely crushed by Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion from the beginning of the fight. He was originally not as strong as Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion, and could not even use 80% of his power as he had been suppressed by the domains. Hence he naturally did not have any strength to fight back, and soon enough, Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion found his opportunity to directly kill him. Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion, how does it feel to personally kill a high-level Grand Ultimate God? Jian Wushuang looked toward Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion with interest. The Heavenly Blood Alliance is really weak as they were suppressed by the domains. They don't even qualify for me to take action. What feelings should I have for killing him? Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion had a cold expression on his face. Jian Wushuang could not help but smile when he heard that. He could see that Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion had just become a high-level Grand Ultimate God, and that was the reason he rushed to fight against the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master, as he wanted to test his strength by going against an opponent. However, the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master was too weak and failed to achieve his requirements. Alliance Master Suhan, all 3 Grand Ultimate Gods, and the Heavenly Blood Alliance's upper echelons had been wiped out. The remaining Heaven Ultimate Gods had started escaping. I don't think you need me to chase after them, right? Old Tong looked over. The Grand Ultimate Gods present had lofty positions. It was nothing for them to kill those Grand Ultimate Gods, including those part of the Heavenly Blood Alliance's core. However, they normally would not lower themselves to chasing after ordinary Heaven Ultimate Gods. No need for that. Leave the remaining issues to the Divine Sword Army. Jian Wushuang smiled. What we need to do now is prepare to withstand the Divine Demon Sect's wrath. Old Tong, Ju Exion, and the others had serious expressions on their faces when they heard that, although wiping out the Heavenly Blood Alliance was different when it came to the Divine Demon Sect. It's public knowledge that the Heavenly Blood Alliance was secretly supported by the Divine Demon Sect and considered as the Divine Demon Sect's assistant. Now that the Heavenly Blood Alliance had been wiped out and we've killed all 3 Grand Ultimate Gods, this meant we've wiped out the Divine Demon Sect's support. The Divine Demon Sect will be furious and take revenge against us in a crazed manner, said Grand Ultimate God Ju Exion. Alliance Master Suhan, are you really sure you can contend against the Divine Demon Sect? Aning could not help but look over. Sure, how could I dare take action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance if I didn't have absolute confidence? Won't that be suicidal? Jian Wushuang smiled and looked at the people around him. Don't worry, all of you can leave at any time if we can't fight against the Divine Demon Sect by then. After Jian Wushuang said those words, only then did those Grand Ultimate Gods nodded in relief. If there aren't any accidents, the Divine Demon Sect will immediately take action. They might even come at us with all they have, and we'll be waiting for them here. Jian Wushuang smiled with absolute confidence on his face. At that very moment in the Divine Demon Sect, just as Jian Wushuang anticipated, the Divine Demon Sect was in a wave of rage when they caught the news that the Sword Alliance had taken action against the Heavenly Blood Alliance and killed all 3 Grand Ultimate Gods, including the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master. Sword Alliance! What an alliance! A middle-aged man in purplish golden armor had a cold expression on his face as he slapped his hand down and turned the throne into powder with his strong divine power. The middle-aged man stood up with a flame of anger burning crazily in his eyes. The middle-aged man in purplish gold armor was none other than the sect master of the Divine Demon Sect, Dongshen. As the Divine Demon Sect Master, Dongshin was also a powerful peak Grand Ultimate God. In front of Dongshin, several figures with a strong aura were standing there. They were the Divine Demon Sect's pinnacle experts, but their expressions were extremely cold at that moment. The Sword Alliance dared take action when they knew we supported the Heavenly Blood Alliance. They are so daring that they wiped out the entire alliance. The Heavenly Blood Alliance was built from us spending lots of resources on them. All three Grand Ultimate Gods, including the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master, originated from our Divine Demon Sect, who had always been the Divine Demon Sect's main strength. It's a huge loss to us now that they are dead, and the Heavenly Blood Alliance has been destroyed. If we don't do anything after suffering such losses, our Divine Demon Sect will become a joke in the eyes of every force in the Danyang continent. That's right. We should directly take action and destroy the entire Sword Alliance. We shall shred Suhan into pieces. We shall not let go of those who are involved. Ju Exan, Strange Old Tong, and Ing, Lon Junju, and Old Snake. Kill, kill, kill. Every pinnacle expert of the Divine Demon Sect was filled with killing intent. The majority of the Divine Demon Sect's experts in the Divine Demon Sect were personally brought up individually and had an extremely strong sense of belonging toward the Divine Demon Sect. Those experts in the Divine Demon Sect had deep feelings of camaraderie among one another, with some were even fellow disciples of the same teacher. All three Grand Ultimate Gods, including the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master that Jian Wushuang and the others killed, had many close friends in the Divine Demon Sect. The Divine Demon Sect Master had an overpowering killing intent surging through his body at that moment. Where are Su Han and the others? Dongshin asked. Based on the news we received, they stayed in the Heavenly Blood City and did not leave. It looks like they are waiting for those from the Sword Alliance to come and take over the Heavenly Blood City, answered a Grand Ultimate God standing beneath him. Chapter 2759. War. Knowing that the Divine Demon Sect will retaliate after he destroys the Heavenly Blood Alliance, how dare he remain in the Heavenly Blood City? Suhan is obviously waiting for us. Well, LM dying to find out the potential of this young Sword Alliance that has only been around for decades. Let's go to the Heavenly Blood Alliance. Dongshin gave an order for all the Divine Demon Sect experts to immediately set off. The Divine Sword Army had arrived in the Heavenly Blood City to solidify their power by expelling any remaining influence of the Heavenly Blood Alliance in the city. Jian Wushuang and the others were standing in the void above the Heavenly Blood City, waiting patiently. The people from the Divine Demon Sect should arrive at any time now. Jian Wushuang smiled. He was looking forward to it excitedly. It only took a few decades for Sword Alliance to grow from a third-rated force since its creation and expand to what it was at that instance. Sword Alliance was finally about to face off the top forces in Danyang continent. I hope the experts from Divine Demon Sect that are coming will not let me down, Jian Wushuang muttered. Strange Old Tong, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, and the others stood beside Jian Wushuang with solemn expressions. They were somehow fearful of the Divine Demon Sect. Suddenly, a few more black spots appeared out of thin air in the distant void. Those black spots were magnifying at a speed visible to the naked eye. In no time, those black spots appeared completely in front of Jian Wushuang and the others. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 9 figures came into the picture. Each of those 9 figures was diffusing an extremely tyrannical breath of aura. The weakest among them were the 5 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. There were 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods. The last person was the middle-aged peak Grand Ultimate God, Dongshin. He had a handsome and impassive face, and he was wearing a purply gold armor. 9 Grand Ultimate Gods. The faces of Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian and strange Old Tong sank at the sight of those 9 figures. As one of the top forces in Danyang Continent, Divine Demon Sect did not seem to have many Grand Ultimate Gods. There were no more than 10 Grand Ultimate Gods. However, that was the information known by the public. Any of those forces with deep roots and influence had private swarms hidden in the dark, away from the eyes and knowledge of the public. Divine Demon Sect was no exception. Therefore, Divine Demon Sect certainly had more than 10 peak Grand Ultimate Gods under their wings. That explained the strong lineup of 9 Grand Ultimate Gods in Divine Demon Sect even after Jian Wushuang and his men killed the 3 Grand Ultimate Gods in Heavenly Blood Alliance. So, they have 9 Grand Ultimate Gods, the 5 primary level Grand Ultimate Gods, and 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods are relatively easy to deal with, but the Divine Demon Sect Master is a peak Grand Ultimate God after all. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed slightly. Dongshen, long time no see. A cold voice sounded. It was Strange Old Tong. Strange Old Tong had grievances with Divine Demon Sect, and therefore Dongshen was no stranger to Strange Old Tong. Dongshen had personally gone on a chase to kill Strange Old Tong before, but he did not succeed. Strange Old Tong, he'll sort out the grievances between us later. Dongshen glanced at Strange Old Tong before landing his cold gaze on Jian Wushuang. Are you Suhan from the Sword Alliance? Yes, it's me. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. A mere primary level Grand Ultimate God who created a powerful Sword Alliance within such a short time. I must admit that you've done very well, said Dongshen coldly. Thanks for the compliment. These are just some small tactics that are not worth mentioning at all, Jian Wushuang replied with a smile. You are modest. Dongshen stared at Jian Wushuang. However, no matter what tactics you have up your sleeves, you should never do anything to Heavenly Blood Alliance and never ever aim at my Divine Demon Sect. All of you here today won't be able to walk out of here alive. Get started. Spare no one. Dongshen waved his hand. Behind him, the 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods and 5 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods made a move instantly. When those 8 Grand Ultimate Gods struck at the same time, a gush of horrific aura enveloped the area in an instant. Alliance Master Suhan, we will do our best to resist these 8 people, but if Dongshen comes in later, you will have to figure out your own way to parry him off, said Strange Old Tong before the 5 Grand Ultimate Gods from Sword Alliance made a move. Although there were only 5 Grand Ultimate Gods from Sword Alliance, Strange Old Tong, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, Strange Old Snake, Mr. Aning, and Lan Junju, they had 4 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods. Besides Strange Old Tong and Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, who were both exceptionally formidable high-level Grand Ultimate Gods, Strange Old Snake, Mr. Aning, and Lan Junju were also extremely powerful. Those 5 Grand Ultimate Gods struck at the same time, fighting against 8 opponents fearlessly. Boom, 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 boom. A series of loud and crisp noises broke out when the experts from the 2 camps fought. The entire void was instantly filled with violent divine power. Neither Jian Wushuang nor Dongshen made a shot. They were just looking calmly at the battlefield from the peripheral. Strange Old Tong was the most dazzling fighter with his wonderful combat power. He had alone confronted an equally outstanding high-level Grand Ultimate God from Divine Demon Sect, completely suppressing and overpowering his opponent, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, who was previously recognized as the top primary-level Grand Ultimate God, had broken through in his combat power, and he was no inferior to Strange Old Tong. He had simultaneously contended with 2 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods from Divine Demon Sect. He was against 2 people, yet he managed to maintain a stalemate with his opponents. In other words, 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods from Divine Demon Sect were feuding with Strange Old Tong and Grand Ultimate God Ju Exian, where the Sword Alliance party enjoyed the advantage. Strange Old Snake and Mr. Anang, the 2 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods, and Lan Junju, the powerful primary-level Grand Ultimate God, kept the other 5 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods from Divine Demon Sect under control. Dong Shun frowned slightly. He did not expect that the combat power from the Sword Alliance Grand Ultimate Gods would be so impressive. Weren't Grand Ultimate God Ju Exian, Strange Old Snake, and Mr. Anang primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods? When did they break through and reach the high-level Grand Ultimate God realm? Dongshun was astonished. Though he was astonished, he was not too worried after all. When Divine Demon Sect was obviously at an absolute disadvantage on the battlefield, whoosh, 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 3 figures suddenly emerged from the surrounding void. There were 1 high-level Grand Ultimate God and 2 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. They were extremely powerful, especially the high-level Grand Ultimate God. He had fiery red hair and wore a fiery red robe. He looked like a ball of raging flame. His breath of aura was extremely tyrannical, and his strength was almost comparable with Strange Old Tong. Chapter 2760. Outstanding Combat Power. He's Fiery Cloud Demon Master. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes as his eyes were locked on the fiery red-haired old man who looked like a fireball. Jian Wushuang knew Fiery Cloud Demon Master because he was among the list of experts. Jian Wushuang wished to send a recruitment invitation with the Huangji Golden Pill. There were 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods in the list of experts given by Strange Old Snake, one of whom was Strange Old Tong. Of the 2 remaining, one had disappeared for many years without a trace, whereas the other one was Fiery Cloud Demon Master, who had also suddenly disappeared many years ago. No one knew his whereabouts, but from what Jian Wushuang could see at that instance, Fiery Cloud Demon Master had obviously joined Divine Demon Sect. Fiery Cloud Demon Master is also an exceptionally powerful high-level Grand Ultimate God. Even if he fights one-on-one with Strange Old Tong, it doesn't seem possible for Strange Old Tong Lao to defeat him in a short time. With him coming into the battlefield alongside 2 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods, we're probably not in an optimistic situation, Jian Wushuang murmured. Indeed, the tide on the battlefield had completely been reversed after Fiery Cloud Demon Master and his 2 members joined the battlefield. Sword Alliance used to be suppressing the 8 Divine Demon Sect Grand Ultimate Gods, but when Divine Demon Sect presented 11 Grand Ultimate Gods at once with Fiery Cloud Demon Master among them, Sword Alliance fell from the advantage position and faced severe disadvantage. Alliance Master Suhan, show what you've got quickly, otherwise we will lose any time. Lan Junju shouted sternly. Among the Sword Alliance Grand Ultimate Gods, Lan Junju was the only primary-level Grand Ultimate God. Hence, she was facing greater pressure. Lan Junju naturally felt helpless as she was facing 3 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods alone. Jian Wushuang acknowledged the situation with a nod and immediately waved his hand. 3 figures appeared instantly in the void. Those 3 figures were lifeless. 2 of the figures were in copper-colored tone, and the last one had a silver-colored surface. They were the silver-armored corpse puppet and 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets that Jian Wushuang had in control. When those 3 corpse puppets appeared, they attracted a lot of attention from the surroundings. Soon, someone recognized the 3 corpse puppets. They're corpse puppets. Judging from their aura, they're very powerful corpse puppets. Alliance Master Su Han has control over these powerful corpse puppets. No wonder he dares to challenge Divine Demon Sect. As expected, Alliance Master Su Han has a certain amount of support. Those Sword Alliance Grand Ultimate Gods felt a sense of relief. Go on. Jian Wushuang pointed at a distance. Then, the silver-armored corpse puppet and the two bronze-armored corpse puppets immediately discharged powerful aura and dashed into the battlefield. The silver-armored corpse puppet had combat power equivalent to a top-notch, high-level Grand Ultimate God, whereas the bronze-armored corpse puppets ranked the same as an ordinary high-level Grand Ultimate God. The situation on the battlefield was flipped around once again after 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods joined the battle. Is this your support? The Divine Demon Sect Master, Dongshen, looked across the battlefield at Jian Wushuang. 1 silver-armored corpse puppet, 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets, strange old Tong, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian, who had just broken through to reach the level of a high-level Grand Ultimate God, strange old Snake, Mr. Aning, and finally, Lan Junju. Your Sword Alliance is indeed no less than any top forces in terms of combat power. No wonder you dare to go against us, the Divine Demon Sect. Su-Han, I regret that I had not wiped the Sword Alliance out when it had just emerged as a first-rated force and before it was firmly entrenched in power. Sword Alliance was vulnerable then. Dongshen's eyes were cold. You're right. If Divine Demon Sect or any of the top forces had attacked Sword Alliance, then we would not be able to resist at all. Unfortunately, you were all too aloof and tried to maintain the status quo of Danyang Continent. None of you were interested in going into a war, and that gave me enough time to build the Sword Alliance. That being said, Divine Demon Sect has missed the best opportunity to destroy Sword Alliance, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. I missed the best opportunity indeed. So this time around, I must completely destroy your Sword Alliance by all means so that the equilibrium in Danyang Continent can be restored. Dongshen's voice was cold. Su-Han, I admit that your Sword Alliance has risen very fast, and you have gathered such a powerful lineup of Grand Ultimate Gods in such a short period of time. You certainly have wonderful methods, but it is a pity that you have underestimated us, the Divine Demon Sect. The reason why Divine Demon Sect has become one of the top forces in Danyang Continent, and it remained strong for so many years, was not only because of our profound background and the many powerful Grand Ultimate Gods we have. The most important thing was that the Divine Demon Sect has the strongest combat power in Danyang Holy Domain. Dongshen's eyes were gleaming when he said that. Dongshen, are you referring to yourself as the strongest combat power? Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently. Dongshen nodded slightly, admitting that he was the one. There was no other undying saint from the Danyang Holy Domain since the passing of Crimson Stone Saint that made the Peak Grand Ultimate God possessing the strongest combat power in Danyang Holy Domain. In addition, there were only a handful of Peak Grand Ultimate Gods in Danyang Holy Domain. Among them, Nan Wu Palace, Divine Demon Sect, Life and Death Tower, and Donggang Clan. The 4 top forces had one each. Dongshen was the one from Divine Demon Sect, under the leadership of a Peak Grand Ultimate God. Divine Demon Sect was qualified to be called one of the top forces. That explained why Dongshen was not too bothered, even though the Divine Demon Sect Grand Ultimate Gods were at an absolute disadvantage in the confrontation with Sword Alliance Grand Ultimate Gods. He had the strongest combat power, and he had yet to participate in the battle. However, he would very soon join the battle. Su-Han, you haven't fought against a Peak Grand Ultimate God, so you'd never know how terrible a Peak Grand Ultimate God is. Do you think it's enough to be able to compete against and overpower the Divine Demon Sect primary level and high-level Grand Ultimate Gods? That, I tell you, is ridiculous. Dongshen sneered. While he was speaking, the astounding breath of divine power that far surpassed everyone else in his body was woken up like an aroused dragon. On the battlefield, the Grand Ultimate Gods from the 2 camps shivered when they sensed the breath of divine power. The Divine Demon Sect Grand Ultimate Gods, were overjoyed. They knew that their sect master, Dongshen, would take the shot himself. A peak Grand Ultimate God, who also had the highest combat power in the Danyang Holy Domain, was about to take the shot personally. The faces of the Sword Alliance Grand Ultimate Gods were a bit ugly. They had no chance against Dongshen, and they could only rely on whether Jian Wushuang had prepared for the counterattack. What worried them was that if Jian Wushuang had enough to resist Dongshen. Chapter 2761. Counting on you, Su-Han. Go to hell. Dongshen's eyes glow with murderous intent. Boom. Dongshen's killing intent exploded alongside his terrifying aura as he charged forward at Jian Wushuang. His power violently shook the void that he went past. He passed through the center of the battlefield to the other side. The two parties that were fighting fiercely retreated to the side in horror. Even the strongest fighter of all, Strange Old Tong, was extremely terrified of Dongshen. Strange Old Tong saw Dongshen skim past, and he dared not to stop it. Dongshen was not hindered in any way, so he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang in just a blink of an eye. Dongshen knew very well that Jian Wushuang was the Sword Alliance leader and the mastermind of the event. Strange Old Tong, Grand Ultimate God Ju Xin, and the others were only taking orders from him. Even the corpse puppets were under Jian Wushuang's control. Dongshen believed that as long as he defeated and killed Jian Wushuang, the nasty situation could be resolved easily. However, when Dongshen waved the giant axe in his hand to have Jian Wushuang responded with a wave. Buzz. A dazzling stream of golden light lit up. A tall and burly figure emerged instantly. The tall and burly figure was holding a battle saber. He emanated a shocking wave of aura as his sword thrust forward for a brutal slash. The battle saber collided with Dongshen's giant axe. Boom! The tall and burly figure was thrashed far away, and Dongshen too was slightly shaken up by the momentum. He regained his footing after staggered 3 steps back. Dongshen raised his head to check out who the opponent was after he stabilized himself. Is that a gold-armored corpse puppet? Dongshen's eyes shrank sharply in astonishment. The experts from the two camps that were engaged in a brawl around the battlefield were in a state of frenzy. That's a gold-armored corpse puppet. It turned out to be a gold-armored corpse puppet. Oh gosh, not only is he controlling a silver-armored corpse puppet and 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets, but he is also controlling a gold-armored corpse puppet. A gold-armored corpse puppet is equivalent to the combat power of a peak Grand Ultimate God. The experts from both camps were amazed. Peak Grand Ultimate Gods were scarce in Danyang continent. Each of the top forces had only one whereby Crimson Stone Fort had Yin Suer and Yunshan. Who would have thought Jian Wushuang, a primary-level Grand Ultimate God, would have a gold-armored corpse puppet at his beck and call? The experts finally knew why Jian Wushuang had so much confidence, and that he dared to make an onslaught upon Divine Demon Sect. You have a gold-armored corpse puppet? Dongshen stared wide-eyed at Jian Wushuang. Dongshen, do you think I'm a fool? If I don't have any confidence in battling against you, I would never launch an attack on Divine Demon Sect. I got the gold-armored corpse puppet by chance a while ago. He happens to have reached the combat power of a peak Grand Ultimate God, so I shall let him be your opponent. Jian Wushuang sneered, and immediately commanded the gold-armored corpse puppet next to him, kill him. The gold-armored corpse puppet did not hesitate. He instantly turned into a golden stream of light and attacked Dongshen. The gold-armored corpse puppet perfectly displayed the combat power of a peak Grand Ultimate God. Dongshen's expression was cold, his body rose, and his breath of aura soared to a whole new level. Initially, he only had a giant axe in one of his hands, but then a giant axe appeared in his other hand. each of his hands holding a giant axe. His combat power climbed to its limit. Attack! Dongshin bellowed and strode out for a strike. An overwhelming gush of divine aura dispersed in the void and fought fiercely with the gold-armored corpse puppet. The fierce battle only took a moment, and the two sides only collided several times. Swoosh! The gold-armored corpse puppet was smashed miserably. Then again, the gold-armored corpse puppet had a tough corpse puppet figure. Though its divine body was smashed, it did not suffer much damage. The message was clear, though, that the gold-armored corpse puppet was no match for Dongshin. Ha! You think a gold-armored corpse puppet can compete with me head-on? What a joke! Dongshin laughed arrogantly. His breath of aura was horrifying. He was violent like a peerless brutish beast. The gold-armored corpse puppet had no wisdom, and after pulling himself up to his feet, he launched another attack on Dongshin. It did not take long before he was smashed again. The gold-armored corpse puppet was just a corpse puppet indeed, although he has the combat power of a peak grand ultimate god, and he knows how to use some of the techniques he practiced during his lifetime. His true combat power is only average among the peak grand ultimate gods. Whereas Dongshin, he has been a peak grand ultimate god for years. His divine power, techniques, and even his treasures and divine weapons are above the gold-armored corpse puppet. I'm not surprised that the gold-armored corpse puppet is not his match. Jian Wushuang squinted slightly while his gaze traveled around the battlefield. Dongshin was temporarily occupied by the gold-armored corpse puppet, and he could not extend help to his people. The Sword Alliance had an absolute advantage over the fight between the rest of the Grand Ultimate Gods, but it did not seem to be a huge advantage. The Sword Alliance's Grand Ultimate Gods faced difficulties to nab a chance to kill several of the Divine Demon Sect Grand Ultimate Gods. The situation would be nasty for Sword Alliance when Dongshin defeated the gold-armored corpse puppet and joined the rest of the battle. The situation could in fact be very awful for Sword Alliance. It seems that I have to help them out, Jian Wushuang murmured as he roused the Seven Stars secret technique. As soon as the Seven Stars secret technique was performed, his realm moved up by another level and his divine power soared. Buzz, an immense amount of golden divine power began to condense behind him, and in the blink of an eye, a golden emperor who was 10,000 feet tall had appeared behind him. The golden emperor was extremely domineering. He stood tall and overlooked everything in the world down below. He was terrorizing. At the same time, on the surface of his body, a layer of dark golden armor slowly emerged. Seven Stars secret technique, Divine God of Punishment, and 9 Sparkle Star armor had been performed at the same time. Jian Wushuang's combat power had risen to its limit. However, he did not immediately make a move. Instead, he flipped his hand and took out a bronze mirror. The bronze mirror was the golden feather phantom mirror. Jian Wushuang was using his mind to control Buzz. A large amount of golden light instantly diffused and covered the entire battlefield in front of him in a jiffy. In addition, the surging golden divine power ocean swept frantically, and on Jian Wushuang's dark golden armor over his body, a domain formed. A sky-shattering sword intent was produced when his 100,000 miles of perfect sword world came into place. Golden Light Domain, Prison of Punishment, Star Armor Domain, Sword World, the 4 domain oppression methods had been put to use all at one go. Jian Wushuang stood right at the core of the golden divine power, while the golden emperor behind him overlooked everything in the world. Then Jian Wushuang slowly stretched out his palm and pumped his fist at the void ahead. 4 domain oppression methods superimposed. Oppression. Chapter 2762. Domain Oppression. Wipeout. Rumble. The terrifying oppressive power of the 4 domains combined instantly went into effect. Back in the secret realm, Jian Wushuang, at the same level of cultivation realm, had only used the Prison of Punishment, Star Armor Domain, and Sword World Domain oppression methods. The triple oppression was able to suppress Saber Master's strength by 20 to 30%. He had since then gained a new technique, the Golden Light Domain. The 4 domain oppression worked in a frenzied manner. It was working well even on the many divine demon sect grand ultimate gods that were targeted. The oppressive effect was simply astonishing. This is the divine demon sect grand ultimate gods were horrified. Oh no, my strength has been suppressed by 50%. A primary level grand ultimate god exclaimed. The primary level grand ultimate god's strength ranked at the bottom among the experts on the battlefield. Under the circumstance when his strength was suppressed by 50%, any high-level grand ultimate god from Sword Alliance could take the advantage to fire a shot at him, and that would be enough to seriously injure him, if not kill him directly. I'm also being suppressed by as much as 30%. How can this domain be so powerful? The few divine demon sect high-level grand ultimate gods were also extremely furious. The primary level grand ultimate god's strength was suppressed by 50%, whereas theirs by 30%. The strongest among all, the peak grand ultimate god, Dongshin, was also being suppressed by the domain oppression. He was shocked. Even my strength is being suppressed by 10%. Dongshin cried in disbelief. The stronger the opponent's strength, the weaker the suppression effect. Jian Wushuang's domain oppression extended to the entire battlefield on the divine demon sect experts, yet a peak grand ultimate god, Dongshin, was suppressed by nearly 10%. Does it mean that if Jian Wushuang put the oppression on me alone, my strength could possibly be suppressed by at least 20%? Just how strong is his domain oppression? The strength of divine demon sect experts had been suppressed by the domain oppression, but none of the Sword Alliance experts was affected in any way. Swoosh! The gold-armored corpse puppet fired another shot, and the battle saber in his hand slashed without mercy at the same level of power he imposed before. Dongshin's expression sank. The giant axes in his hand fell off his grips. The two collided with each other and caused an explosion of terrifying power. As a result, the gold-armored corpse puppet was sent flying, but Dongshin only retreated a few steps back. Damn it! Dongshin's gaze turned gloomy. He had an absolute advantage over the gold-armored corpse puppet, but after his strength was suppressed by the domain oppression, he only had 90% of strength left at work. He could sense the difference when he fought with the gold-armored corpse puppet again. Though he still overpowered the gold-armored corpse puppet, it was not as easy as before. If that was what Dongshin was feeling, the other divine demon sect grand ultimate gods were in a worse situation. Attack! Kill them! Strange Old Tong, grand ultimate god Ju Xin, Strange Old Snake, Mr. Aning, Lan Junju, and the corpse puppets were not affected in the slightest. They naturally would not miss the once-in-lifetime opportunity. They went all out trying to kill the divine demon sect experts. The divine demon sect grand ultimate gods were in a mess. They flustered. In addition, after the domain oppression was in action, Jian Wushuang, who had been standing in the void outside the battlefield doing nothing, flipped his hand to summon his blood mountain sword. Let's start killing. Jian Wushuang wore a cold grin as he launched himself into the battlefield. He did not go to Dongshin. Dongshin was extremely powerful, so it was almost impossible for Jian Wushuang to kill him. Jian Wushuang's strategy was to just allow the gold-armored corpse puppet to keep Dongshin busy, so he had no chance to free himself up and assist the other divine demon sect grand ultimate gods. Jian Wushuang was aiming for the divine demon sect primary level and high-level grand ultimate gods. His figure was zooming around like an agile phantom at his fastest speed. He appeared in the center of the battlefield, and his gaze was immediately locked on a divine demon sect, primary level grand ultimate god right in front of him. Strange old snake, seize the opportunity. Jian Wushuang shouted. Strange old snake was startled and a little stunned. Jian Wushuang pointed with his finger, and a gush of space-time law power erupted. The divine demon sect, primary level, grand ultimate god, who was fleeing froze in place. His body and expression froze, as if space-time was at a complete standstill. The weird scene surprised Strange Old Snake, and he immediately understood what Jian Wushuang was saying. He was the first grand ultimate god to be Jian Wushuang's follower, and he once saw Jian Wushuang beheaded FOE. He was familiar with the method to freeze space-time. Without any hesitation, Strange Old Snake took a step forward and fired a shot at lightning speed. The divine demon sect, primary level, grand ultimate god, who was trapped in the frozen space-time, was killed by Strange Old Snake before he could recover his senses. He was the first grand ultimate god who was slain. Jian Wushuang slashed his sword across the other side after helping Strange Old Snake to kill the first grand ultimate god. Mr. Ning, Jian Wushuang shouted. There were two primary-level grand ultimate gods who were fighting against Mr. Ning, but they did not survive Jian Wushuang's finger-pointing heavenly technique. Although Mr. Ning did not know what exactly was the technique, he took action and killed both of the primary-level grand ultimate gods. In just an instant, without firing an attack at any of the opponents, Jian Wushuang had killed 3 primary-level grand ultimate gods easily by cooperating with Strange Old Snake, and Mr. Ning using the finger-pointing heavenly technique. That made the divine demon sect experts, who had been panicking because of the domain oppression, even more petrified. Run! Run away quickly! It's weird. What exactly is that? 3 primary-level grand ultimate gods were beheaded in just a jiffy. At this rate, I'm afraid that all of us will be beheaded soon. Quick, run away from this domain. Sorrowful and terrified lamentation echoed in all directions. The divine demon sect, primary level, grand ultimate gods had completely lost their intent to fight, and they began fleeing for their lives. Bastards! Dong Shen was furious when he saw what was happening, but he did not stop any of them from leaving. He knew that divine demon sect had lost the battle. It was a miserable defeat. Their losses would be greater if they insisted on carrying on fighting. The Sword Alliance experts and the corpse puppets were chasing after the divine demon sect experts that were escaping. Jian Wushuang was among the crowd. His gaze once again landed on that one person. Chapter 2763. Vanquished Jian Wushuang had his eyes on an old man with fiery red hair who looked like a ball of flame. The man was Fiery Cloud Demon Master. Fiery Cloud Demon Master was outstanding among the high-level grand ultimate gods. Killing him was like killing 3 primary-level grand ultimate gods. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian. Jian Wushuang yelled. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian was fighting against Fiery Cloud Demon Master, and the silver-armored corpse puppet was nearby. Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian responded immediately to Jian Wushuang's cue. He turned around and saw Jian Wushuang had his finger out pointing at the distance. Buzz. The space-time power dispersed. He was again performing the finger-pointing heavenly technique. Damn it! It was to Fiery Cloud Demon Master dismay to find Jian Wushuang stretched out his hand and pointed toward him. Fiery Cloud Demon Master desperately wanted to dodge away. Unfortunately, a finger-pointing heavenly technique was an unusually overbearing technique. It had the space-time around Fiery Cloud Demon Master under control, and running away was not an option available to him. In an instant, Fiery Cloud Demon Master and the space-time around him became stagnated. However, Fiery Cloud Demon Master was extremely powerful. Jian Wushuang's A-finger-pointing heavenly technique had only managed to freeze him for a short moment. It was such a brief moment, yet Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian and the silver-armored corpse puppet caught hold of it. Whoosh! A dazzling saber light instantly cut in a violent sweeping stroke on Fiery Cloud Demon Master's head. The silver-armored corpse puppet had bright silver light flashing. Its body transformed into an ancient ferocious beast and popped up behind Fiery Cloud Demon Master. Its palm wide open, like a fierce beast's claws, went down on Fiery Cloud Demon Master. The space-time around Fiery Cloud Demon Master was back to normal, and he immediately noticed the two horrible attacking moves coming in both in front of and behind him. Shocked, Fiery Cloud Demon Master immediately ignited a conflagration, and at the same time both his arms stretched in opposite directions trying to resist the attacks targeting him. He had no time to perform fancy defensive moves, so he was relying on his palms in parrying off the attacks. Bang! Bang! Two loud booming sounds were heard, followed by Fiery Cloud Demon Master being shaken up. He felt a sweet taste in the mouth as he spouted out blood. His face turned pale, and his breath of aura wilted instantly. He was obviously seriously injured. He was lucky, considering that he only suffered a serious injury instead of being beheaded. Having survived the destructive attacks, Fiery Cloud Demon Master desperately wanted to pull himself further away from Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian and the silver-armored corpse puppet. Suddenly, a phantom-like figure appeared next to him unexpectedly. "You are." Fiery Cloud Demon Master spotted the figure from the corner of his eyes. The figure was wearing a golden robe and holding a long sword in his hand. Behind the figure was a 10,000 feet tall golden emperor. He was Jian Wushuang. **T. Fiery Cloud Demon Master went wide-eyed. Jian Wushuang brandished his sword. A beam of sword light emerged. The sword movement gave away a poignant and heartbreaking feeling. It was confounding, yet mesmerizing to watch. Many experts who were fighting around the battlefield were attracted and fascinated by the sword light. They felt tipsy. It was slightly uncomfortable but dreamy and enjoyable. Space-time sword technique, 7th form, enchanted. As Jian Wushuang improved his grasp on the space-time law, his understanding of sword principles improved, and he had been seeking new breakthroughs in sword techniques. He had created the first 7 forms of space-time sword technique, and the 7th form was a huge breakthrough. Every single new form after the 7th form was extremely difficult. Jian Wushuang has created the enchanted form for decades, and he had yet to create the 8th form. Though it was the very same 7th form he performed decades ago, he managed to make it even more fascinating and unusually hard to be resisted. Its speed and power had also been greatly improved. Fiery Cloud Demon Master's eyes showed that he was baffled by such mesmerizing and beautiful sword light, and he seemed like he had fallen for the magical moment. However, his mind was fully aware of the situation, and he frantically wanted to do something to resist the fascinating sword attack. He wanted to resist the attack so bad. However, he just got lucky with Grand Ultimate God Ju Xian and the silver armor corpse puppet, and he was running for his life. Jian Wushuang caught the perfect opportunity to fire the shot while sealing off the path Fiery Cloud Demon Master was retreating. Fiery Cloud Demon Master was horrified to find himself unable to keep up with the speed of Jian Wushuang's sword. He knew he was too slow compared with that sword movement. He had no time to resist the sword attack. Finally, chuck! The poignant sword light passed through Fiery Cloud Demon Master. He was covered with conflagration, but as the sword light passed by, the flame was put out instantly. His eyes dimmed as his breath of aura diminished. He was killed in just a jiffy. What a pity, Fiery Cloud Demon Master. If you did not choose to join Divine Demon Sect and wait for a little longer for me to send you an invitation, you would not die. You will also get a Huangji Golden Pill to attempt a breakthrough to the peak Grand Ultimate God Realm. Jian Wushuang sighed when he looked at the Fiery Cloud Demon Master's body. While Jian Wushuang slew Fiery Cloud Demon Master, the battles around him were also leaning in favor of one party. Most of the Divine Demon Sect Grand Ultimate Gods were defeated, and they were fleeing for their lives. Their strength was suppressed by the domain oppression and the terrifying golden prison around them. They had to first escape the golden prison that was extremely difficult for them. In just a few moments, in addition to the 3 primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods and Fiery Cloud Demon Master, who were killed with the help of Jian Wushuang, a high-level Grand Ultimate God, and a primary-level Grand Ultimate God were killed. 6 out of 12 Grand Ultimate Gods, including Dongshin, who turned up from Divine Demon Sect, were beheaded. That was half of the manpower, and the killing was obviously still going on. Without warning, boom. A terrifying roar sounded abruptly, far ahead up front. A hole was made through the extremely strong golden prison under the impact of majestic power, and the hole was growing larger. Dense cracks appeared quickly all over the golden prison, spreading like a spider web. Finally, the golden prison collapsed due to the impact. After that, a burly figure appeared. Chapter 2764. Nanwu Palace Master. He was a bulky middle-aged man who wore a loose and luxurious robe with a dignified expression on his face. His hands were behind his back while he stood in the void and oversaw everything from the peak with cold eyes. Although all of those who stood in front of him were considered strong Grand Ultimate Gods, they were no different from ordinary experts in the bulky middle-aged man's opinion. The most noticeable part about him was the divine power being released from him. The wave of divine power unleashed was really too strong. Although he was also a peak Grand Ultimate God, he was much stronger when compared to Dongshin. Their superiority was distinguishable simply by his wave of divine power, without the necessity for both of them to fight it out, as the bulky middle-aged man was far stronger than Dongshin. This is Nanwu Palace Master. Experts who were fighting furiously from the Sword Alliance and Divine Demon Sect were surprised when they saw that bulky middle-aged man. It's Nanwu Palace Master, the current publicly recognized #1 expert in the Danyang Holy Domain. He's actually here. The golden prison has been broken. Let's run. Quick. The remaining Divine Demon Sects Grand Ultimate Gods grabbed the opportunity to immediately escape into their surroundings at the same time the others were stunned. Jian Wushuang and the others had also stopped their attacks while looking over to the bulky middle-aged man with a serious look in their eyes. As the saying goes, a big tree was a good shelter. The saying applies to a well-known person too. Nanwu Palace Master was, after all, the incumbent, publicly acknowledged first-ranked expert in the Danyang Holy Domain. He was ranked first among the ultimate gods in Danyang Holy Domain. That fact could be noticeable from either the divine power he unleashed, which was one whole level higher than Dongshin, or his actions of breaking Jian Wushuang's golden prison with a simple attack. In short, he was an extremely strong person who nobody dared to ignore. Nanwu, Dongshin standing in the void, had also seen Nanwu Palace Master's arrival. However, the gold-armored corpse puppet was still blocking him. Dongshin, this is the first time I've seen the Divine Demon Sect be in such an embarrassing situation. A first-rated force badly defeated a pinnacle force such as yourself, said Nanwu Palace Master in a relaxed manner, with his cold yet filled with a strong hint of dignity in his voice. Humph, it's easy for you to critique when you're at the sidelines. Do you think the Sword Alliance is merely a first-rated force? Dongshin asked with a solemn expression on his face. That's true. Nanwu Palace Master slightly nodded. His purpose for rushing over was because he received news that the Sword Alliance had wiped out the Heavenly Blood Alliance in a thunderous manner and almost caused all the experts from the Divine Demon Sect to come forth. His original purpose was to observe the Divine Demon Sect's true combat power, but did not expect to see such a great and almost unbelievable change in the battle. It was true that the Divine Demon Sect had sent every member they had with a total of 12 grand ultimate gods, and even Dong Shun personally took action. However, the results were them being heavily defeated by the Sword Alliance in direct combat. In addition, he had been staying in a nearby void and was able to see the ongoing fierce battle in the Golden Prison as his soul power was sufficiently strong to ignore the Golden Prison's blockade. Therefore, he was able to observe everything happening on the battlefield. The Sword Alliance's grand ultimate god-level combat power had greatly surprised even himself. The combination of all 5 grand ultimate gods that consisted of strange Old Tong, Ju Xian, Old Snake, and Ing, Lan Junju, and even Jian Wushuang coupled together with a gold-armored corpse puppet, a silver-armored corpse puppet, and 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets. Such grand ultimate god-level combat power was really horrifying. Together with Jian Wushuang's suppressive domains that covered the entire area, only the Crimson Stone Fort and his Nanwu Palace among the 5 pinnacle forces in Danyang Continent were capable of defending against such combat power. Sword Alliance. Nanwu Palace Master's facial expression slightly darkened when he looked over at Jian Wushuang with his sharp eyes. I've heard about how strong Alliance Master Su Han of the Sword Alliance was. You're undeniably a pinnacle genius that killed FOE, a primary level grand ultimate god. Head on while you were still a peak heaven ultimate god. Now that I've seen you today, you really are exceptional, said Nanwu Palace Master with a hint of certainty in his words. He saw the battle clearly with his own eyes. Although Jian Wushuang was only a primary level grand ultimate god and had not previously taken any action, his motions were capable of completely changing the situation. He started with activating his domains to suppress the entire battlefield and constricted every expert under the Divine Demon Sect on the battlefield. His subsequent actions then killed 4 grand ultimate gods in one go while working together with the Sword Alliance's experts, such that even the fiery Cloud Demon Master was killed by him. Although such power was not a threat to him, it was enough to catch his attention. Jian Wushuang smiled humbly and asked, Nanwu Palace Master, I've been looking forward to meeting you. What happened today is between the Sword Alliance and Divine Demon Sect. It has nothing to do with the Nanwu Palace, and I know that the Sword Alliance had never caused trouble with Nanwu Palace. I wonder why Nanwu Palace Master is here today. Nanwu Palace Master was silent for a short while before speaking. Alliance Master Su Han, it's true there are no grudges between Nanwu Palace and Sword Alliance. The Nanwu Palace shouldn't have gotten involved in what's going on today. However, the Divine Demon Sect is one of the 5 pinnacle forces in the Danyang Continent and carries great influence. ITLL effect, the pinnacle force's position, once losses are too great and will have a great impact on the situation in the Danyang Continent. At that moment, the balance that we've tried so hard to maintain will be completely disrupted and might lead the Danyang Continent into a chaotic state. Hence, I hope Alliance Master Su Han can stop whatever that's going on to give Nanwu Palace some face. What do you think? Nanwu Palace Master spoke in a gentle voice. Although he sounded casual, he gave off the suppressive aura of someone superior. Jian Wushuang and all the Sword Alliance's experts were able to feel extremely strong pressure coming from Nanwu Palace Master. Jian Wushuang knew that if he refused to stop and continued the battle, Nanwu Palace Master would personally take action. At that moment, battling Nanwu Palace Master was not something Jian Wushuang was completely confident about. I don't dare object, now that Nanwu Palace Master has personally made this request. This battle shall end here. However, the Sword Alliance has taken over Heavenly Blood Alliance, and nobody should ask us to relinquish it. I hope Nanwu Palace Master can understand this, said Jian Wushuang. That's for sure. The forces in the Danyang continent won't stop fighting against one another. Understandably, the Sword Alliance is powerful enough to take over one or two forces and control some territories. I believe Sect Master Dong Shen also thinks so too. Nanwu Palace Master glanced at Dong Shen. Dong Shen had an extremely darkened facial expression. He was not reconciled with the ongoings at that moment, but there was nothing he could do even if he was unhappy about it. He could see the situation in front of him. The Sword Alliance not weaker than the Divine Demon Sect. When comparing their total strength, it was stronger instead. Chapter 2765. Almighty Rise, the Divine Demon Sect, was definitely in a disadvantageous position when they encountered the Sword Alliance even during their prime. On the contrary, they would be directly struck down. After that huge battle, the Divine Demon Sect alone had lost 6 Grand Ultimate Gods, and when combined with those 3 from the Heavenly Blood Alliance that the Sword Alliance killed, they had lost a total of 9 Grand Ultimate Gods. It could be said that they suffered a great loss. They would have to consider themselves fortunate if the Sword Alliance did not continue taking action against the Divine Demon Sect under such circumstances. It was a joke for the Divine Demon Sect to think of retaliating against the Sword Alliance to snatch back the territories that once belonged to the Heavenly Blood Alliance and avenge their fallen experts. He even understood that if Nanwu Palace Master did not take action in time, the Divine Demon Sect would have lost even more experts. Alliance Master Suhan, "I'll make a move first since everything has been resolved," said Nanwu Palace Master before turning to leave. Dong Shen and the Divine Demon Sect's remaining Grand Ultimate Gods had dark expressions on their faces, especially Dong Shen, who was glancing at Jian Wushuang and the others coldly. Although he did not speak, Jian Wushuang could spot the torrential grudge in his look. After a few moments upon Nanwu Palace Master and the others' departure, has anybody suffered losses? Jian Wushuang looked at the Grand Ultimate Gods around him. Old Tong, Zhu Xian, Old Snake, and Ing, and Lan Junju looked at each other with smiles on their faces. Alliance Master Suhan, there aren't many people who I admire throughout my entire life, but you have my admiration today. The Divine Demon Sect had been dominating the Danyang continent for so many years and never suffered any losses even during their head-on fights against either the Crimson Stone Fort or Nanwu Palace. However, the Divine Demon Sect had suffered such tremendous losses in the hands of Alliance Master Suhan and lost 9 Grand Ultimate Gods. "I really admire your abilities," said Old Tong. Previously, he had a huge fallout with the Divine Demon Sect. Hence, he was the happiest upon seeing the Divine Demon Sect suffering great losses. Apart from holding such strong suppressing domains, you also had a gold-armored corpse puppet, a silver-armored corpse puppet, and 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets. No wonder the Alliance Master was so confident to go into a head-on fight against the Divine Demon Sect. It turns out you really can go against the Divine Demon Sect. Zhu Xian and Ing, Lan Junju, and the others were happily chit-chatting among themselves. They were truly quite nervous and worried before their fight with the Divine Demon Sect. It was the Divine Demon Sect who had never been overthrown for years after all. However, they had never expected they would defeat the Divine Demon Sect head-on with such overwhelming means. They never even dared to think about it before that moment. Jian Wushuang only smiled gently when he heard that. "Alliance Master, I don't think Dong Shen will just let this go based on his facial expression when he left," said Old Snake with a deep voice. Jian Wushuang slightly smiled. "I know, although the Divine Demon Sect is one of the Danyang continent's pinnacle forces with quite a stable foundation with many grand ultimate gods. We killed 9 of them. How can the Divine Demon Sect put down such a great loss? However, the Sword Alliance isn't afraid of them, regardless of the grudges the Divine Demon Sect bears against us. In addition, the losses they suffer this time are so great that it's enough to affect their foundation and position. The Divine Demon Sect will be struggling after this, and might even fall into a position with no hope of making a comeback if they aren't careful. In the end, there are many forces and experts who lust after the Divine Demon Sect's position or have grudges against them. Jian Wushuang knew clearly that the Divine Demon Sect must have accumulated quite many grudges throughout the years as one of the pinnacle forces. For example, Old Tong previously had a great grudge against the Divine Demon Sect. There were certainly many experts like Old Tong in the Danyang continent who had grudges against the Divine Demon Sect. Despite the many experts' grudges, the Divine Demon Sect did not suffer any losses to their strength, as they had many experts on top of also having Dong Shen personally overlooking matters, which was enough to shock everyone. However, the Divine Demon Sect had lost 9 grand ultimate gods, all at once that day. It was not easy to recover from such a great loss. It was a great opportunity for those experts or forces that held grudges against the Divine Demon Sect to overturn them. It's a waste we did not completely stop Dong Shen in this battle, or the Divine Demon Sect would have been done for, thought Jian Wushuang to himself. Dong Shen was the backbone and stabilizing force of the Divine Demon Sect. Even though the Divine Demon Sect lost a huge number of grand ultimate gods, they were still qualified to be considered as a pinnacle force as long as Dong Shen was still alive. However, the Divine Demon Sect would be easily overturned if Dong Shen died, as they would lack the highest combat power deterrence. However, Jian Wushuang also understood it was not so easy to kill a peak grand ultimate god. At least he knew that he was unable to do so at the moment. In the battle just moments ago, he only managed to control the gold-armored corpse puppet to do its best at pestering Dong Shen under the suppressive assistance of the domains. It's normal for the Divine Demon Sect to be unhappy, but the appearance of Nanwu Palace Master is beyond my expectation, said Jian Wushuang with a frown. He was prepared to face the Divine Demon Sect, but did not expect to face Nanwu Palace. Nanwu Palace Master's appearance was indeed unexpected. Luckily, the Nanwu Palace did not directly take action against the Sword Alliance, and only asked us to stop to protect the Danyang continent's balance. It looks like Nanwu Palace doesn't want to cause a big stir and place high importance toward the balance of forces in the Danyang continent. Jian Wushuang slightly narrowed his eyes and smirked weirdly. However, Nanwu Palace Master isn't aware that even without the Sword Alliance continuing our actions, it'll be difficult for the Divine Demon Sect to stabilize their current situation based on the losses they suffered. The situation between forces in the Danyang continent will still enter a chaotic period. It isn't only because the Divine Demon Sect is unable to stabilize their current situation with the losses they suffered, but the most important matter is the strong uprising of the Sword Alliance. The Sword Alliance is having a strong uprising this time, and will surely turn the Danyang continent upside down. The messier the Danyang continent becomes, the better it is for me. Old Tong, Ju Xin, and the others who stood beside Jian Wushuang glanced at each other. They did not know Jian Wushuang's true aim, but had their pride, as they had promised to fight for the Sword Alliance for 1,000 years. They would do their best, no matter which forces the Sword Alliance went against during that period. The Sword Alliance had a great victory in the battle that day, as they had wiped out the Divine Demon Sect in a face-to-face battle and killed 9 of their grand ultimate gods. Once that news spread, they believed it would shake the entire Danyang continent and cause a wave of perilous reaction. The Sword Alliance's prestige would reach new heights within a short time. Unsurprisingly, it would lead to the birth of a new pinnacle force. Chapter 2766. A great shock. Jian Wushuang and his people previously wiped out the Heavenly Blood Alliance with overwhelming strength and killed 3 grand ultimate gods, including the Heavenly Blood Alliance Master. The Divine Demon Sect was furious and attacked with their full might. Nanwu Palace Master was not the only one who received news about the occurrence. Several other pinnacle forces, and many first-rated forces, second-rated forces, and independent experts had also learned about it. There were many witnesses during the head-on fight between Divine Demon Sect and Sword Alliance, which resulted in an immediate spread of the news. As Jian Wushuang and the others had anticipated, the news caused a stir in the entire Danyang continent once it spread. The forces and many experts in the Danyang continent were stunned. The Divine Demon Sect sent their full force of 12 grand ultimate gods, being personally led by the Divine Demon Sect Master Dongshin, to clash head-on with the Sword Alliance, but was defeated. 6 of their grand ultimate gods were decapitated on the spot by the Sword Alliance. How's that possible? Is this a joke? After all, they are one of the pinnacle forces. This is inaccurate. It's inaccurate. I know about the Sword Alliance, and they had just been founded decades ago. The Alliance Master is Suhan, who's only a primary-level grand ultimate god, although he's a genius and killed FOE in a head-on battle while still a heaven ultimate god. It was rumored that his success had a certain level of embellishment in it. How could it be possible for the Sword Alliance to directly go against the Divine Demon Sect and defeat them? It's impossible. I think it's impossible, too. Different forces and experts felt it was impossible when they received the news, with no one believing it. However, many saw the battle, with some of them being extremely strong experts. There were even people who purposely recorded the battle with image tokens. Although these people did not know what happened to the Divine Demon Sect's grand ultimate gods after they were trapped in the Golden Prison, the onlookers still recorded the subsequent events after Namu Palace Master destroyed the Golden Prison. Those image tokens soon spread widely across the Danyang continent. The experts could only accept the truth, regardless of how unbelievable it was with the image tokens' existences. It's true. The Sword Alliance had truly defeated the Divine Demon Sect. Oh my God! Since when did Strange Old Tong, Ju Exan, Old Snake, Aning, and Lan Junju join the Sword Alliance? And since when did Ju Exan, Old Snake, and Aning make a breakthrough to the high-level grand ultimate god realm? Look at those figures in the recording. Those are corpse puppets. Those 2 bronze-armored corpse puppets have the combat power of ordinary high-level grand ultimate gods, while the silver-armored corpse puppet has a peak high-level grand ultimate god strength. However, those images even showed Alliance Master Suhan taking out a gold-armored corpse puppet, which had the combat power of a peak grand ultimate god. No wonder they're capable of defeating the Divine Demon Sect in a face-to-face battle. The Sword Alliance's upper echelons have such high combat power. All questions were thrown out the window when they saw the occurrence from those mirror images. The Sword Alliance's battle array was horrifying and truly had the capability of directly defeating the Divine Demon Sect. At that moment, all of them understood that the Divine Demon Sect's defeat was justifiable, and their remaining grand ultimate gods might not be able to leave peacefully were it not for Namu Palace Master's interference at the end. Apart from that, 2 other matters arose after the news was verified. Firstly, the Divine Demon Sect was badly affected by the battle. The Divine Demon Sect had lost a total of 9 grand ultimate gods in the battle when taking into consideration of those 3 Heavenly Blood Alliance's grand ultimate gods that were killed. It had to be highlighted that the Divine Demon Sect had a limited number of grand ultimate gods, Losing 9 of them meant they were left with a small number, which drastically decreased their upper echelon's combat power. Such events had brought excitement to many forces in the Danyang continent. Some of the experts who had grudges against the Divine Demon Sect were also eager to take action. In the past, the Divine Demon Sect was extremely strong and acted extremely domineeringly, hence those experts dared not offend them even though they had triggered many of those experts. However, the Divine Demon Sect had suffered such a huge change at that moment, and those experts would not forget to hit them with another blow. Secondly, the Sword Alliance had directly defeated the Divine Demon Sect. The Sword Alliance's overpowering strength had shocked those forces and experts. Hence, a rumor had been started in the Danyang continent that the Sword Alliance would be replacing the Divine Demon Sect and become a new pinnacle force. Apart from that, even if the Divine Demon Sect was able to maintain itself due to Dongshen's support and their profound heritage, the Sword Alliance's rise was certain. It was because the Sword Alliance already had the strength of a pinnacle force. Although the Sword Alliance did not have a true peak grand ultimate god, they had a gold-armored corpse puppet supporting them as their highest-level combat power. Such a fact was further verified with their capabilities of directly defeating the Divine Demon Sect during the grand ultimate god-level battle. As for those lower-level members being led by the Sword Alliance, every force had received news that the Sword Alliance also had an army known as the Divine Sword Army, consisted of 500 heaven ultimate gods that was formed at a great cost and having extremely high combat powers. It could be said that Jian Wushuang had already possessed sufficient strength. It was estimated that the difference between the current Sword Alliance and a pinnacle force was having sufficient territories and profound heritages. However, obsolete strength was required to obtain territories and profound heritage, but that was not an issue, as one could also plunder others for them. Therefore, the Sword Alliance undisputedly would become a new pinnacle force in the Danyang continent. In a dimly lit hall, there was no lighting or any ornaments, but only a huge round table in the middle. At that moment, 3 obscure figures formed around the round table. Those 3 obscure figures were only consciousness incarnations, and not the real bodies, as they did not have any power, but were only capable of conversing. Why isn't Dongshen here? An evil voice resounded from an evil-looking old man who was completely covered under a black robe. The evil-looking elder had green eyes and looked extremely ghastly. However, he had a great identity. There were 5 pinnacle forces in the Danyang continent, and that evil-looking elder was the Life and Death Tower Master. The Divine Demon Sect had met with such a huge change and suffered losing 9 grand ultimate gods alongside a great blow to their prestige. Many forces and experts now have their eyes fixated on the Divine Demon Sect. Hence, Dongshen is extremely busy doing his Divine Demon Sect master responsibilities right now. How could he have the time to come over here? A gentle voice could be heard from the only woman among those 3 people. She was an old lady with gray hair and had spots all over her face, looking extremely worn out. The Dongfang clan masters had always been women. The gray-haired old lady was the clan master of Dongfang clan at that moment. Chapter 27:67. Outer realm apart from those 2, a bulky middle-aged man with a strict face was also sitting by the round table. The bulky middle-aged man in a loose yet expensive-looking robe was the publicly recognized most powerful expert in the Danyang continent, Nanwu Palace Master. Nanwu Palace Master, Life and Death Tower Master, and the Dongfang Clan Master. 3 of the 5 pinnacle forces leaders in the Danyang continent had gathered there. Honorable leaders, I'm sure you know the reason I invited you here today. Nanwu Palace Master looked at the others around him. The evil-looking elder, the Life and Death Tower Master, laughed weirdly. Of course, We definitely need to revise our plans now that such a huge incident has occurred. The gray-haired old lady, also known as the Dongfang clan master, asked, I never imagined the divine demon sect was so weak. How could they be defeated in a head-on battle against the Sword Alliance, an alliance that had just been formed recently? Don't underestimate the Sword Alliance. Both of you would be foolish to think that it was a pure coincidence for the Sword Alliance to defeat the divine demon sect, said Namwu Palace Master in a low voice. Namwu, what do you mean by this? The Life and Death Tower Master looked at him. Namwu, you also took action during the battle and knew most about the Sword Alliance. Tell us about them, if you know, said Dongfang Clan Master. It's true that I saw the entire battle with my own eyes. The Sword Alliance isn't weak and is truly slightly stronger than the Divine Demon Sect. I'm guessing that only Namwu Palace is stronger than the Sword Alliance among our 4 pinnacle forces, while both of your forces are almost at a similar level to the Sword Alliance, said Namwu Palace Master. Are they really that strong? The Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master's facial expressions darkened. They saw from the mirror images that the Sword Alliance had quite strong combat powers. However, it was quite unconvincing to say the Sword Alliance was well matched with both their forces. Namwu Palace Master said with a serious tone, You only saw images of the battle, but did not participate in it. The Sword Alliance had such an upper hand in the battle isn't only because the Sword Alliance has a group of grand ultimate gods with high combat power. Another major reason is the Sword Alliance Master Suhan. Don't underestimate Suhan. Although he only has the power of a primary-level grand ultimate god, he has extremely strong skills and exceptionally strong domains. Many of the Divine Demon Sect's grand ultimate gods were greatly suppressed when it was activated, causing their combat power to be greatly reduced. Even a peak grand ultimate god, such as Dongshin, was greatly suppressed. These are the results of his domains when covering the entire battlefield. If he focused on only suppressing an individual, the domain suppression would be even stronger. The Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master were stunned when they heard that. They realized that Namwu Palace Master had a high evaluation of Suhan's domains. Suhan's skills in domain control must be extremely good for the Namwu Palace Master to give him such high praise. Suhan's skills and the Sword Alliance's strength are only some of the factors. The real issue we should be afraid of is the Sword Alliance's background, said Namwu Palace Master all of a sudden. Background. The Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master were stunned. The Sword Alliance had risen at such a fast pace within only a couple of decades, while Suhan is just a primary-level grand ultimate god who isn't really strong. How can he create such a strong Sword Alliance capable of competing against the pinnacle forces by himself in such a short time? Namwu Palace Master seriously raised his doubts. You mean that Suhan has people secretly supporting him? Dongfang Clan Master slightly narrowed her eyes. That's right. According to the news I received, the Sword Alliance already started building its own army when it was founded. Apart from that, the reason their strength grew so profoundly is that the Sword Alliance has a large number of resources. They gave much better offers, 2 to 3 times more compared to those offered by ordinary first-rated forces, to the experts they gathered. The reason so many experts are willing to join the Sword Alliance is because of their exceptional offers, and is the reason the Sword Alliance manages to grow rapidly within such a short period. However, where did all these resources come from? It can't be Suhan who obtained them by himself, right? Namwu Palace Master asked. The Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master also nodded in agreement after hearing Namwu Palace Master's conjunction. It was true that Suhan only had the strength of an ordinary peak heaven ultimate god when he first gained a reputation in the Danyang continent. The number of resources he owned when compared to his strength obviously meant somebody was secretly supporting him. However, who could be capable, or should we say, who would spend so much resources to raise the Sword Alliance to become a pinnacle force? Could it be the Crimson Stone Fort? The Life and Death Tower Master had a cold look in his eyes. However, Nanwu Palace Master directly shook his head. It can't be the Crimson Stone Fort. If it's the Crimson Stone Fort during its peak period when they had the Crimson Stone Saint supporting them, they might still be capable of supporting the rise of a pinnacle force. However, I'm sure you know of the current situation in the Crimson Stone Fort. They have such serious internal fights amongst their factions and suffer a huge consumption of assorted resources. Even Yun Shan, the person who's in charge of various resources in the Crimson Stone Fort, and the most wealthy among them all, isn't capable of supporting the rise of a pinnacle force. It's difficult for them to even support a single first-rated force. Apart from that, all of us know the temperament of strange Old Tong, Ju Xian, and Ing, and Lan Junju. The current Crimson Stone Fort isn't capable of coming up with better terms to move them. However, these people are obeying Sword Alliance's Su Han right now. The Dongfang clan master suddenly asked, if it isn't the Crimson Stone Fort, who else is capable of supporting the Sword Alliance? Could it be somebody from the Outer Realm? Outer Realm? The Life and Death Tower Master also narrowed his eyes. Nanwu Palace Master's facial expression turned cold. Nobody among the local forces in the Danyang Holy Domain is capable of raising a pinnacle force. There's a huge possibility that the Sword Alliance's supporter is a force from the Outer Realm. The Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master's facial expression darkened after they heard that. The Outer Realm, the Danyang Holy Domain, was only one of the many realms within the 9 realms of Golden Crow. There were 8 other realms around them on top of the Danyang Holy Domain. Among those 8 realms, some of the realms were bigger and wider than the Danyang Holy Domain, which naturally meant they had more experts. Even the weakest realm was comparable to the Danyang Holy Domain, and there were without a doubt some extremely strong forces in those other 8 realms. The remaining 8 realms differ from the Danyang Holy Domain, as they still have undying saints supporting them. The forces they controlled were extremely powerful. Chapter 2768. Silent Acquiescence. It was not difficult for forces from the other 8 realms who had undying saints supporting them to raise a pinnacle force in the Danyang Holy Domain. If a pinnacle force from the Outer Realm is secretly supporting the Sword Alliance is true, the Sword Alliance is of great threat to us. The Life and Death Tower Master had a cold look in his eyes. Yes, the Danyang Holy Domain has been at an absolute disadvantage since Crimson Stone Saint's passing. The current infiltration of Outer Realm's pinnacle forces must be aimed at taking over the entire Danyang Holy Domain. We should take action right now and wipe out the Sword Alliance while it still hasn't stabilized its position to be safe, said the Dongfang clan master. Nanwu Palace Master frowned. It's true that we should immediately take action under normal circumstances. However, matters are different right now. I've received news that the Crimson Stone Fort recently has been rather eventful, and all the factions are preparing to take action. It seems Saber Master, who once controlled one of the factions, has fallen. The Life and Death Tower Master said, I've also heard about this, but it's just a rumor with no way for us to confirm if Saber Master had truly fallen. However, the situation in Crimson Stone Fort has indeed been rather eventful recently. It looks like Crimson Stone Fort's factions will completely fall out with a really huge battle about to happen. Their huge battle is the opportunity we've been longing for a long time. Nanwu Palace Master had a cold expression on his face. That's why it's unsuitable for us to take action right now. It can be said that the Sword Alliance has risen at the perfect timing, as it happens to be, when there'll be some huge shifts happening in the Crimson Stone Fort. We cannot focus on the Sword Alliance if we aim to complete our long-term goals of completely overthrowing the Crimson Stone Fort. Both the Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master's brows slightly furrowed. It was true that the Sword Alliance had appeared at the perfect timing. The Sword Alliance appeared when the opportunity they craved for since long ago finally arrived. Under such circumstances, they had to focus themselves on the Crimson Stone Fort and use all the time they had to prepare themselves so that they could obtain their heart's desires when the huge changes occurred in the Crimson Stone Fort. However, if the three of them unite and go against the Sword Alliance at that moment, putting aside the fact that the Sword Alliance was supported by Outer Realm forces, which already made it difficult to take action against them, they would also need to expose many of their last resorts, which greatly reduced their strength if they really planned to overthrow the Sword Alliance. In addition, Crimson Stone Fort would have more opportunities to prepare themselves. As such, it would mean that they would not have the absolute upper hand when going against the Crimson Stone Fort thereafter. There's nothing we can do, as we can only either overthrow the Crimson Stone Fort or the Sword Alliance. I suggest we take action against the Crimson Stone Fort first. The Life and Death Tower Master slightly narrowed his eyes as he spoke in a low voice. In the end, the Sword Alliance is still a young force, and their total strength won't be as domineeringly strong. Even if they are secretly supported by Outer Realm forces, it won't be so easy for those outside forces to infiltrate us, as this is still the Danyang Holy Domain. The most they can do is supply some resources. The Sword Alliance has grown to its current capacity, which makes it almost impossible for them to further drastically increase their strength. All we need to do is send someone to keep an eye on the Sword Alliance's movements and stay alert. I too agree. It won't be too late to take action against the Sword Alliance after everything. The most important matter right now is to go against the Crimson Stone Fort. The three of us have been waiting and laying low for so many years just for such a great opportunity to overthrow the Crimson Stone Fort. Now that the opportunity is here, we cannot get distracted by a mere Sword Alliance, added Dongfang Clan Master with a serious tone. Nam, what do you think? Both the Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master looked over at Nanwu Palace Master. Nanwu Palace Master smiled softly. I'll support it, since both of you have made your decision. According to the news Nanwu Palace received, the current Crimson Stone Fort is a tightened bowstring that any slight movement will trigger into a full-blown battle. It won't be long before that happens, and the entire Crimson Stone Fort will be in complete chaos at that time. I'm sure it'll only take several decades, or perhaps even less than 40 years for a great battle to completely erupt in the Crimson Stone Fort. We shall put up with the Sword Alliance during this period and unite to wipe them out after we've gotten rid of the Crimson Stone Fort. All right. Both the Life and Death Tower Master and Dongfang Clan Master also seriously nodded. The three of them came to a mutual understanding after the brief discussion and slowly left the place. The Sword Alliance's rise was inevitable. It was proven that the Sword Alliance had become a pinnacle force following Nanwu Palace, Life and Death Tower, and Dongfang Clan's silence. The Sword Alliance then started sweeping through the lands and easily gained control over the many territories that once belonged to the Heavenly Blood Alliance. Several forces that were located in between were also ruthlessly wiped out by the Sword Alliance at the same time to unite the Sword Alliance's original territory and those that belonged to the Heavenly Blood Alliance. The Sword Alliance's territory grew enormously after those forces' territories had fallen into the Sword Alliance's hands and soon already surpassed the strength of a first-rated force, and were infinitely close to becoming a pinnacle force. In the Sword Alliance headquarters, the Sword Alliance had already taken over the Heavenly Blood Alliance and several second-rated forces' territories. However, Nanwu Palace, Life and Death Tower, and Dongfang Clan didn't react at all. It seems like those three families have acknowledged the rise of the Sword Alliance and won't take action against us before they wipe out Crimson Stone Fort. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. He was able to guess those three Pinnacle Forces' plans. In the end, he had been keeping tabs with Yin Sewer and Palace Keeper Sijun, allowing him to understand Crimson Stone Fort's current situation well. Those three forces were focusing their energy on the Crimson Stone Fort and could not spare any time for him. It was exactly what the Sword Alliance wanted. Announce my orders. We no longer need to be scrupulous toward anybody starting today. Presumptuously wipe out the surrounding forces and take over as many forces as possible. As for those Pinnacle Forces, don't be afraid if their experts come forward. You're allowed to directly fight them off if possible, as I allow small fights, but remember not to corner them, ordered Jian Wushuang. Yes, Master. The Sword Alliance experts obediently received his order. Xiao Chexin asked, Master, although the Sword Alliance can be counted as a pinnacle force right now, we haven't stabilized ourselves. Won't it be too over the top if we act so presumptuously? Those pinnacle forces won't allow us to expand so scrupulously, right? Jian Wushuang said, I'm sure they don't want to see that happen, but they definitely won't stop us. From the moment they decided to not take action against the Sword Alliance means they have silently acknowledged the Sword Alliance can take over a huge piece of territory and become a pinnacle force. What I'm doing right now is pressuring these pinnacle forces. Chapter 2769. Got the divine elixir pills. Pressure. Xiao Chexin was puzzled. I want Nanwu Palace, Life and Death Tower, and Dongfang Clan, and the already warned Divine Demon Sect to know that my Sword Alliance is rising at an amazing speed, and I have great ambitions to annex and expand. I want all of the top forces to feel that kind of pressure that I will take over them at just any time, Jian Wushuang explained. But why? Xiao Chexin was still puzzled. Haha, it's very useful. You just can't see it yet. Anyway, you just do this according to my instructions. Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Yes. Xiao Chexin stopped asking any more questions and quickly left. Jian Wushuang sat there alone, with a gleam in his eyes. Yin Sewer, I have put enough pressure on those top forces. It's up to you now. Although I will go all out to help you, you gotta show me what you've got a thing or two. You can't blame me if you're lousy yourself, Jian Wushuang mumbled. Jian Wushuang had done enough. He had severely ravaged Divine Demon Sect, grew Sword Alliance, and scared the other three top forces stiff. The top forces were chary of acting rashly. Under those circumstances, Yin Sewer should have had enough time for preparation. Next, Sword Alliance expanded and grew its influence rapidly according to Jian Wushuang's plans and order. It was like a hungry beast subjugating the forces around them. Even the top forces were not spared. They were affected by Sword Alliance to a certain extent, and they have had contentions. Fortunately, the altercation did not lead to nasty fights. In the long run, Sword Alliance had asserted a certain amount of pressure on those top forces. Life and Death Tower, Dongfang Clan, the badly hit Divine Demon Sect, and even Nanwu Palace felt tremendous pressure from Sword Alliance. That area of growth did not require Jian Wushuang to put in any more effort. While his followers were at work carrying out his plans, he had been working diligently on improving his strength and perception of the laws and sword principles. He made colossal progress with the 2 Fengtian scrolls in his hand. 3 years went past in a blink of an eye. In the past 3 years, Sword Alliance had had frequent activities. On the other hand, the other top forces in Danyang Continent, including Crimson Stone Fort, seemed to be extremely calm. Everyone knew that something was brewing under the seemingly calm surface. One day, Jian Yi, the divine elixir pills you wanted has arrived. Palace Keeper Xizhen sent a message. So soon. Jian Wushuang was over the moon when he got the news. 3 years ago, he handed the Holy Treasure level battle saber sword to Yin Suer, and he asked for 50,000 divine elixir pills in return. He thought that Yin Suer would need a longer time to deal with a Holy Treasure level battle saber, but it took only 3 years for Yin Suer to sell it off. Jian Wushuang immediately set off for Holy Palace. When he arrived at Sacred Palace, Jian Wushuang only spotted Palace Keeper Xizhen. There was no sight of Yin Suer. Then again, it was normal. Tensions were brewing within the Crimson Stone Fort factions during the period of time, and all the factions were doing their best to be prepared. Yin Suer would have had a lot to deal with. Alliance Master Su Han, it's been a long time. Palace Keeper Xizhen let out a hearty laugh when he saw Jian Wushuang. Palace Keeper Xizhen, don't tease me, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. I dare not tease you. You are now the Sword Alliance Master, whereby the Sword Alliance is the top force in Danyang continents. Even Divine Demon Sect has been defeated. I believe that even Fort Master can't afford to be smug and complacent around your achievement, Palace Keeper Xizhen said, so as to butter up Jian Wushuang. Then, Palace Keeper Xizhen got serious and took out an interspatial ring. Jian Yi, this is given to you by the Fort Master. Your Holy Treasure level battle sword was sold to an undying saint for 65,000 divine elixir pills. According to what you've asked before, Fort Master has given you 50,000 divine elixir pills and the price for your damaged pinnacle heavenly treasure battle armor. We've rounded it up to 53,000 divine elixir pills for you here. Jian Wushuang took the interspatial ring, and he made a careful count of the content with his soul power before nodding. Please help me to thank Fort Master for these. Fort Master is grateful for you. Palace Keeper Xizhen smiled. Earlier, Fort Master had earned a small fortune and benefits from the 230 caddies royal blood gem you gave her. This time around, you have given her a greater amount of benefits with an extra of 15,000 divine elixir pills. They came in handy to provide sufficient resources. Major changes are about to take place in Crimson Stone Fort, and the Fort Master might not be so sure of her preparation without the blessing. From what I've heard, you are saying that your Fort Master is now very sure of how to deal with the situation? Jian Wushuang smiled. I can't say that we're very sure, but there is still a chance around 30 to 40%. This is just from the Fort Master's management. If Jian Yi and our Sword Alliance are willing to help each other at that time, then there is at least a certainty of preservation. 70% of it, said Palace Keeper Xizhen. 30 to 40% is not a small amount of assurance. As for Sword Alliance, I will do my best to help out, Jian Wushuang said. That's good to hear. Palace Keeper Xizhen was delighted. By the way, what's going on in Crimson Stone Fort? Jian Wushuang asked casually. Fortunately, although news came out that Saber Master has died, this piece of news has not been confirmed. Therefore, although there were some activities going on in the various factions of Crimson Stone Fort, they had yet to take any serious action. The factions are quietly accumulating and preparing their strength and power. Once the fuse is lighted, Crimson Stone Fort will be completely chaotic and wars will break out. No matter who wins the battle, Crimson Stone Fort would completely solve the never-ending disputes, said Palace Keeper Xizhen. Then I will go off first. If something happens in Crimson Stone Fort, just send me a message, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Palace Keeper Xizhen nodded slightly. Jian Wushuang left immediately. After returning to Sword Alliance, he immediately found a secret chamber and began to cultivate in seclusion. 53,000 divine holy pills added up with the few divine holy pills obtained and accumulated by Saber Master before. It should be enough to make my strength even greater. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands tight, expectantly. Let's start. Immediately, Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and began to refine those divine elixir pills.